guys. So it's November 8th, 2020. So much has happened in the past week. Oh my goodness. I see Cameron has been sharing some stuff with us. I have to get caught up with the whole political scenario. But that's been exciting to see. And in general, things are moving. So anyone want to give a status update? Drake, how are things in Orlando?
Let's see. I was just coming home this morning, and the major street outside of my home, there are a bunch of cars just driving by, honking with their flags. It's like a whole parade, Biden parade, which is funny because I never saw any of that prior to the election. And then now that the election's over, it's like all these people decided now they want to do the same thing that they were seeing the Trump supporters do. It's really interesting.
Bandwagon.
Yeah, interesting.
You know, like those bandwagon fans in sports.
Yeah.
You just want to be part of the winning team.
Yeah. It'll be really interesting to see what they're doing
Good point.
next month, right?
Okay.
What'd you say?
So today in
it'll be
Minnesota,
interesting
it's
to see
like,
what they do next month.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah. It should be
Today in
interesting.
Minnesota, it's like over 70 degrees. And in 2 days, it's supposed to be blizzard snow under 30 degrees.
Bipolar,
Wow.
just like the
current situation in
everybody.
the world.
Yeah. How about Canada, Asa? If you want to give us a little update about Canada.
Canada weather's nice.
Does it suck as much as your audio sucks right now?
Does my audio suck?
Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
Please talk into your mic.
Hello. Is it working? Is my microphone working?
It's working when
It
you're
works.
low.
It's just
Yeah. Can you not turn it up or?
Don't turn it up? Or
No,
turn it-
do.
Yeah.
no.
You
I
turn it
think
up.
it sounds okay right now.
Okay,
Yeah?
now it's
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
Maybe I just need to turn up my volume here.
So aside from the weather, Asif, how's Canada?
The climate's
Make it
doing well
good.
too. The atmosphere,
Changing?
moisture in the
Changing
air
up.
is pretty good too. In terms of temperature is pretty good, but climate's more important. The overall climate of the atmosphere. We're talking about the atmosphere, right?
What's the
Yeah.
difference between climate and weather, Asif?
6 letters.
I don't think that's correct
That's because you didn't do math.
Well, no, they
because they have at least
both
2 letters in
E
common.
and A. Yeah. So.
Nope.
Not the way Asif spells it.
Yeah. K I L I Kali. Anyways, I have just been observing what's been going on, and considering the point of, how do you know when the election's over? How do you know who got elected, right? It's like when enough media companies shout it out, right? You Google it, Google says that's a wrap, right? Associated Press says that's a wrap. But it's being contested, right? Like I'm not even clear, but I'm assuming it's being contested, right?
The Electoral College has not actually elected the president yet.
But why on Google, on the Associated Press, it says that it's donezo, U.S. election?
Well, hear me out, because
I'm
I know
hearing you.
Drake will have the real specific answer, but think about this. You guys watched the Fine People hoax, right?
Oh yeah.
Did that get fact checked? Like,
No.
really?
No.
So why is anyone surprised that this is happening right now with the election?
Yeah.
Right. So to answer your question directly, like the Electoral College has to submit, like each state has to have their electors who who make up the Electoral College send their vote
Decision.
to who's going to be the president. Yeah. And so what we do in the US is we have our states, the population votes in each state, and then depending on state law, that determines what the electors will do in terms of voting for the president. Right. So if they're disputing the popular vote or the votes rather in a state, then that state can't have yet submitted their electors, right? The electoral votes. So what's happening right now is the media is using persuasion to make everyone just assume that Biden's the president and he's just going to keep going into office and everything's fine. And then that it'll look like Trump is resisting that or defying that or something. Do you see what I mean? So it's just persuasion.
Who is
In
the
the same-
Associated Press?
It's just a
Like-
news organization.
Why are they the ones who are listened to when it comes to calling the election? Like, why are they the center?
Why is the World Health Organization listened to in terms of decisions about health?
No fucking idea.
They just
who
beat
controls
everyone up to it, and they held their ground as like the authority, right?
And well, more importantly, the average person has no fucking clue.
Mhm.
It's like if I went up to your house and I was wearing a police uniform or what looked like an official police uniform and I knocked on the door, would you immediately be
You're like, oh shit.
shit, the police are here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You would just assume,
Mhm.
right? So what I'm saying
I'll tell you in awareness, it's like you Google US elections and then, you know, it has that thing, the 2020 US elections result, it shows the map of the red and the blue. And above it, it says, you know, from the Associated Press. You click before it says the Associated Press has not called this race yet. You click on learn more, and then it says how we call races, and has all this information. And what's playing in me is, oh, I guess they're the authority. People go to them to find out the truth, the answer. It's different from other media organizations, and that was all subconscious. It just ran inside of me
Mhm.
right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, so you're like seeing the actual movement of all the information inside of you.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
It's
we've
not.
been impulsed that the AP is this unbiased like thing that makes decisions or reports news or whatever. But that's just what we've all accepted as who apparently gets to make the call.
Mhm.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
You see what
So
I mean?
then in the process now, what's actually happening within the courts? Because now it's part of the judicial system to actually determine who wins, right?
Well, I can't say the details of all that because I'm not following what the lawsuits are, but basically the Trump administration is going to look in each of the cases where they think there's been anomalies or issues or whatever. They're going to put lawsuits to have things either recounted or reevaluated or whatever. I don't know the details of it, but that's obviously what they're going to do.
Now I was
and
watching
so-
that Scott Adams one from today, right?
Mhm.
Real Coffee with Scott Adams, and he was
Mhm.
mentioning he is one of the most clear thinkers I've ever seen. Being
He's
able
pretty
to
cool.
to give the possibilities, the reasons for each possibilities and the likelihood for each one of them, and how it's different possibility versus like likelihood and all that stuff. It's really cool. But what he was saying is that there's also statistical anomalies in regards to one example is the number of votes in a given area, like far surpasses the number of registered voters.
Yeah.
There's another one is there's so many ballots that instead of voting for president, House, and Senate, it's like there's a bunch of ballots that just checked off Joe Biden and nothing else. It's really
Yeah.
interesting.
And there's all kinds of explanations for this that seem logical, right? But I think one of the more compelling ones that he gave was because I'm also following like both sides when people say in response and so forth, and one of them was okay because I know I don't know if you were watching, Asif. Were you watching the election like kind of live that evening? When
A little bit, not really.
Because I know we were having a little live thing with or a Zoom call with Drake.
It was
And
Maylad's birthday that day, so we're having dinner.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. We all saw it happen in real time, right? Which was because we stayed up very late, where we watched like, okay, they're stopping the counting, and it's like some of the states just like stopped, and you're like, because everyone, it's like we've been accustomed to. You stay up, and then you find out it's pretty obvious at the end. Everyone's done counting, and then there it is. And so what's interesting about it is because like Katie brought up this point because she was talking about the AP, and she was like, well, but isn't it always the case, even with Trump last time, like the press declared the winner? And I was like, yeah, but they were done counting. You see what I mean? It was enough had happened. There wasn't like stop everything in these places and then let's pick it back up tomorrow. And then there's those cases, for example, where it's like suddenly overnight in the morning when no one was even awake, they found new ballots. There's all these little weird things, right? And obviously there's also a lot of people on social media like giving examples of stuff that isn't actually real fraud. It's just like it seems like it, and everyone's like, oh, see. But I think that's kind of more also a persuasion game where it's like to keep morale up of like, hey, this is contested, you know.
Right.
I think in the courts they're going to be talking about what's really going on. You know, I mean, why would they talk about bullshit? What's the point? You know.
Yeah.
But the thing that was really interesting that Scott Adams brought up, amongst many of the different points that are also compelling, was the point of the mail-in ballots are supposed to historically go Democrat, right? So if you have mail-in ballots, right? So typically that favors Democrats. Now, why is that true in the past? Like, if it was prior to COVID, there's not, as far as I understand, a real explanation for that. Maybe there is some kind of explanation, but obviously it's not this explanation, which is the Democrats are more likely to mail in their ballots because they're more afraid of COVID, and the Republicans, they're with Trump and they don't care about COVID, so they're more likely to go in person. I mean, that actually logically makes sense if I were to just look at how I see things. That makes sense. But how did that make sense in the past?
Mhm.
So there has to have been a different reason in the past, right? But then also, did y'all notice how it's like on the media, they're bragging about these large crowds who are out in the streets and packed together, like celebrating Biden's win or win announcement, whatever. But then why weren't they able to vote? Like, if that's the case, like clearly they were able to go and vote in person. There's obviously like a disconnect there.
Yeah.
So what I see is a point where if you have to look at it in terms of sides, you have one side which is willing to sort of say whatever you need to say. It's like y'all saw when Kamala Harris was on Stephen Colbert, and he was like asking her about some of the things she said about Joe Biden in the debate, and she was like, "It's a debate. It was a debate," and she just kept saying that it was a debate. Like, in essence, I just said a bunch of shit to win the debate. I didn't agree with it. So it's like, so they're willing to do that, and I'm not saying the other side's not willing to do that. That's why it's a joke when we call it a debate. It's not a real debate. It's a persuasion game, and you're manipulating perception. It's not like you're actually logically winning a debate. Like, give me a break. But anyways, to go back to that point, they said that, okay, so what happened was all the people who voted early or voted in person, their votes got counted first. The mail-in ballots came. Those are heavily Democrat, and that's why you saw this big jump all of a sudden, right? But what Scott Adams was pointing out, which I wasn't aware of before, according, of course, you have to actually go into and look at it, so it's just a possibility, is that when they actually looked at, like, prior to the stop of the counting or whatever, where were like the mail-in ballots and everything coming from? It was coming from Trump supporters as well. And then suddenly, when they stopped counting, then it was only on one side. So it wasn't actually what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because it sounds logical what they're saying. They're like, oh, I mean, am I representing it correctly? That's what he said, right? So it's like, it seems logical. And even when I heard that, I'm like, well, okay, I guess that makes sense. However, even if it makes sense, let's just look at it from our perspective, right? Because, like, I don't know what's going to happen, what's going to be the outcome of this court process. I think it's going to be interesting, to say the least, because the media is just projecting something. But let me put it this way. Didn't the media say that Biden was going to win like plus 10 in every state and all this stuff, and it was going to be like this huge, massive thing? And that's clearly not what's happened. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And the fact that so many Republicans it's like they've gained seats in the House. No Republican lost their incumbent election, I guess, is something, right? They've gained seats in the Senate. So it's like, what's really going on here?
Yeah.
And it's like a perception game. So the mainstream media has been lying the past 4 years about everything Trump has done. We know that. We're not going to be able to convince somebody who doesn't want to accept that. They're going to have to go for themselves and go investigate. And maybe with the space that people have of believing right now that Joe Biden will be the president, whether he will end up being the president or not, they'll have the space to actually go look honestly about things. Maybe it's going to be difficult to do that because it's like, I think all of you have read 1984. The main character's job in 1984 was to go and change the information in the history books and the newspapers
Yeah.
so that it was never incorrect whenever they decided to do something different than they had done in the past. So I think it'll be increasingly difficult. But if you were to go back and study all the things Trump actually did, like you have to, I mean, someone's going to have to do some book on it. And what it's going to be is,
Sure.
assuming that Biden gets in office and things keep going that way, it's going to be like these biographies and history books that are like banned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's going to be like one of those things like the Federal Reserve book that I have, that Dr. Jekyll Island, Creature of Jekyll Island,
That's
where
a
it's
bit-
like, people are like, oh yeah, that's just some conspiracy stuff, whatever. But the one thing I think that stands out the most to me, I was looking at this earlier today, is have you noticed anything negative about Biden in the mainstream presentation since they've declared him the winner or since the election or anything?
No.
So if you were trying to be objective about it, let's say you were a Biden, like not a Biden supporter, but somebody who's just like, oh, Trump's terrible and Biden's great and all this stuff, right? If you were trying to be objective about it, wouldn't you have to look at that and say, why is it that the entire mainstream apparatus, even Fox News, is totally okay with this and is like, yeah, but Trump's done?
Okay.
What? Yeah.
So over the weekend, or actually just before, I guess yesterday is when they made the announcement. So before then, I was talking with one of my friends who hates Trump, absolutely cannot stand him, right? And we were talking and we were just going kind of like, because he knows I'm a Trump supporter. And so I was just like, dude, I like the guy. He's cool. And I was just explaining to him why I find him cool. And also explaining, all the things that you've seen in the media is clearly biased against him. And he's like, well, you guys have Fox, Fox is just so crazy. Not that I'm like, dude, all the media companies, they're all shit. Everyone, including Fox.
I don't like Fox. Like,
right. I'm like, Fox sucks. So does CNN. They all fucking suck equally. Right.
Yeah.
And it was funny because as I'm like explaining this to him, I'm also explaining to him how he's just experiencing cognitive dissonance, because I could see it really clearly. You've just become very emotional about a point, and then you've just decided that everything that person does is inherently evil or bad. And it was really clear to me anyway, when I suggested, or when I just said, hey, Biden, his mentor, one of his mentors, who he's openly said is his mentor, was a high-ranking member of the KKK. And his response was, well, during that time, everyone was probably a part of the KKK. I'm like, okay, but look right there, right? You're giving that a pass, but yet you can't see past Trump's not a racist when he clearly denounces racism, but all this other stuff makes him bad. Like you're having a double standard there, right? And it's that same thing. I see it really clearly. And I love, especially having conversations with you, Cam, because you'll say things that make my mind go, well, it's got to be the other way then, right? Like, for instance, very obvious example, you shouldn't hit your kids. That's abusive, right? And then most people go, well, you have to discipline your kid. You're not saying you can't discipline.
So they're going to be little monsters, and they're
right,
going to,
right. So it has to be one way or the other. They can't just take what's best from each situation. It has to be like, no, this is all evil. This person, I've already declared that person's evil. So anything associated with them, you even say their name, that's evil too. And it's really interesting if you were to suggest something that sounded actually practically really good and actually made a lot of sense, but then if you were just to say, even if this wasn't the case, if you were just to say, well, that was one of Hitler's ideas, people would completely denounce the idea. It could be like, we should feed every child. And I've noticed this so fucking much when you talk about like creating a world that's best. Whenever you talk about creating a world that's best, or whenever somebody outside of this group talks about creating a utopia is what they usually call it, right? Or creating an ideal world, they always come back to, well, it's always failed in the past whenever anyone else has tried to do it. And it becomes this thing where it's like anytime anyone tries to talk about utopia, they will connect it to, well, Hitler wanted a utopia, or, you know, Stalin wanted a utopia. And that automatically just makes it, you can't even talk about utopia anymore. And it's this cognitive dissonance that just, it doesn't allow for people to really create, really come to actual practical conclusions. They've missed the entire boat. They either swing one way or the other. They can't just put the pieces together themselves. It's really crazy.
And what's so funny, Drake, building on that, is when you ask people like, well, do you want to live a better life? Like, do you want to improve in your life? They're like, oh yeah, yeah. And you're like, okay. But you can just tell people can't have the ability to actually reason through and process the information that's here, which would mean, well, it's like you want a better life for yourself, which inherently, if you were serious about that, would be, okay, I want to then create a better like family life, then community, and then a better world. Like I wanted to ripple out into that better world. You'll say, hey, do you want to like improve the world? Would that be good? Yeah, of course. Okay. But at what point, like what's the limitation to that?
Right.
Because if you really do want to create a better world, then you'd be on board with us of saying, let's make a world that's best for all. It's like this limitation in people's ability to actually see through. And frankly, it's a lack of self-trust too. Because so many people are like, well, how could I possibly know what's best? It's like, well, you're kind of fucked, but we can work with you.
Well, there's a lot of people also that say that's too big of a task. It's
Yeah.
impossible. It takes too many people. It takes too many resources. Like it's just impossible. It's too big of a task.
This
So
is
we-
why. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
This is why you have the whole like love wins and all this stuff. It's
And
like
you're
this
lazy.
magical force will just kind of make everything better. Like if it involves us having to direct it to that outcome, can't do it. So you just put your faith in stuff. Okay, so this is something I was considering. Trying to look
Hey,
at
real
how to
quick- real
formulate
quick.
it. Yeah.
While you formulate that, have you guys been seeing on both sides? Okay, it's okay, guys. Like leave it in God's hands. God will elect Trump. Just be faithful. And then the other side is it's okay, guys. Just leave it in God's hands. God has finally elected Biden and Harris.
That's actually how God makes decisions. It's just a democracy. He just looks at it and he goes, all right, Biden, Trump.
Hang on. Bunch of 4 a.m. ballots. Hang on.
Well, that's what I'm wondering is God susceptible to voter fraud or not? Because can he actually see the real vote? Because if Trump gets in office, let's say he does some legal battle and it's some technical stuff and he stays in office, which probably a lot of people who, let's say they really don't like Trump, they're going to look at that and say, that's insane. Like you guys are crazy for even thinking that. I don't know what's going to happen, but look at it. Okay, so let's just say you're a person listening to this and you're totally like, you like Biden, you don't like Trump at all, you want him gone, you want Biden in office, and you're listening to people on the Trump side saying there's obvious fraud, something's going on here, this isn't right, and you're thinking, oh, you guys are just having cognitive dissonance. You know, you said we were crazy because we were saying all this Russian collusion stuff, and that didn't turn out to be true. So first of all, I would ask you, so was the Russian collusion true or not? Because if it was, then you would have to admit the side where they're saying, well, there's some fuckery going on with the Trump election. Now you'd have to say, well, if that's valid, this could be valid too. But just to put that aside for a moment, this is how I look at it. From the moment Trump announced that he was going to be president or that he was going to run, the media was, it's stupid, not going to happen, not going to happen. Then when he won the primary, it was like, he's racist, he's a terrible person, you can't let him in office. The RNC, the Republican, the GOP themselves didn't support him at all. They didn't give him any money for fundraising or anything. He had to do everything himself. He did all these rallies, all this stuff. When he gets in office, like, even just take Fox News out of the equation for a second, because here's how you can look at it. Here's how I look at it. And here's how I've always looked at it. I've never looked at Fox News and been like, at least we have someone on our side. No, I don't see it that way, because Fox News is a corporation. It's part of the same group of people that control most of the things in this world. It's just this kind of sort of place where you can get all the Trump people who are identifying as conservative or whatever to get their news from, so that it can be shaped and manipulated. I never looked at it and said it was totally, yeah, we got the truth there. Okay. So the entire media establishment was for Trump, was against Trump. And then you have, for example, the investigation with Russia and all that stuff. You had the impeachment. You had all these different points. So when I look at this whole election thing, I look at it as one thing in a series of many different things that were all just trying to get rid of Trump. You see what I'm saying? There was never any actual acceptance of him by anybody, like in the establishment, so to speak. So this is just another point within that. So when I'm looking at it, what I see here is you have people who are willing to say anything, who don't have any real principles, who do not represent what's best for anybody. They only representing ultimately the interest of the mega gigantic multinational corporations. That's their starting point. How do you know that's true? Like, I'll just play along with you guys. Okay. Does Biden and Kamala Harris support Black Lives Matter?
Yeah.
Are there any major mega corporations that don't support Black Lives Matter?
No.
Why is that?
Because Black Lives Matter has what's best in mind for the people.
But why? But do okay. But I can't ask a person directly. They have just asked themselves if they're willing to be honest. Do you think that big multinational corporations have your best interest at heart?
No.
So if you're finding yourself in 100% agreement with them, should trigger a red flag for you? Do you see what I mean? That should trigger a point. Now, here's the difference between I think I can say us, but I'll just speak for myself really, versus me versus, like, let's say probably the average Trump supporter. I don't look at Trump as some kind of a savior. I never have, I never will, I never did, and I've been very clear about that. One of the primary things that I really liked about what he's doing is representing what real leadership is, which is not saying what people want to hear and then doing another thing. It's saying what you actually see and then doing that. And I think anybody could say that about Trump, like whether you like him or not. That's a major point that I see as important in this world. I'd rather, if our leaders are going to be fucking evil, they should just say, we don't fucking care about you. But they're not going to do that because they're really evil. Do you see what I'm saying? They're going to lie.
Yeah, the media has polarized the situation so extremely that all of those that see Trump as bad and negative, like I have probably hundreds of people on Instagram that have been emotionally distraught, shut down, couldn't even function for an entire week, posting about their coping mechanisms because of the polarity and the chaos, and they can't handle it. And then when the news said that Biden won, they posted, oh my goodness, it's been 3 years of horror, and I've been so suppressed and I've been so emotional. I haven't been able to do anything for 3 years. It's been so horrible. And now finally the people have common sense and they elected Joe Biden, and I can be free of this pain. I don't have to be sad anymore. I don't have to feel so depressed anymore. This is the solution to all of my problems. Like,
That's called anti-self-perfection.
Yes.
Holy fuck.
That's the total, and it's like I've seen that too. And you know what? It's the thing is, again, this is not about sides. As I said previously, there is no two sides. That's all just an illusion. So you're gonna have the Trump people who are gonna break down and be like, "Oh, I can't believe this bullshit." Like, like they're gonna do the exact same thing that they were laughing and making fun of the other side about. Okay, that's gonna happen. But it's not about sides. It's not about Trump supporters versus everybody else. It's about what's actually best. That's what this is all about. And if you're basing your emotional state on anything outside of yourself,
Yeah.
that's it. That in itself is the problem. And this is what opens people up to being manipulated and lied to. For example, I don't know if you guys watched the speech. I watched it live when Joe Biden gave his address last night. And basically, towards the end of it, he said that this is the time to come together and unite and heal. Right? Do you think he actually meant that? Or was he manipulating within certain people that exact point you just brought up, Jess? That's what he was doing with those words, because they were going, oh, finally I can heal, I can feel good again. Like he's actually a really good salesperson. It's funny because when I watched his speech last night, I was like, he's a lot better than he was letting on. I don't know if maybe he was just on the stimulants or maybe that was all an act. I don't know. But he's actually very good. He was very good at delivering that speech and hitting all the right. Did you see it, Drake? Last night?
No.
You got to watch it. Because
right.
like I could see, I'm like, this guy's good. Like he knows what he's doing. And what was it that people...
I'm sorry. I have seen speeches of his in the past where he's on and it's like, he's on. Like, damn. Like,
This was a good speech, I would say, from the perspective of technically very good and very persuasive for who he was talking to. But if you're looking at it objectively, he was saying it's time to unite and heal, right? Why wasn't that said? And he said also, this is the time where the Republicans and the Democrats should come together and work together, not just be separate. And it's like, but like, why wasn't that being said for the past 4 years? And now the problem is, the people who are, let's say, the anti-Trump type people are going to go, but Trump was dividing everybody and all of that. The problem is the same people who you're listening to, who are telling you Biden's now going to be the president and so forth, are the same people that we're saying have been lying about Trump this whole time. So you're being manipulated still by that very same group of people. That's why you feel good. You don't feel good because you're now living from a set of principles. Because I didn't feel bad. I mean, I went through a period of like disappointment of like, wow, I thought it was going to be a clear-cut thing. We're going to keep going forward. This is going to make just things more challenging, not for me personally, but generally speaking, because of the way, taxes might be raised and things like that. But at the end of the day, I was here when Obama was president. And we moved ourselves and so forth. You said, I'm not looking at it like it's the end of the world. The only thing I see is, regardless of the outcome of who ends up becoming the president, our mission stays the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you live from a set of principles, you're going to have some kind of ups and downs, but those are moments where you see, oh, that was a weakness I was allowing within myself. That was where I was still placing responsibility outside of myself. Now I need to look at that, forgive myself, get rid of it, and move forward with more resolve to do what's best. Not finally some politician got up on stage and said some words and now I feel an emotional release. And another thing I wanted to add too, which I want to see what y'all think about this, because I'm looking at the ways to kind of express all these points. One of the things I noticed, the rhetoric being used, is that finally now, if Trump's going to be gone, which is what people are believing, decency is being restored and we're going to be respected on the world stage again. But what was the argument being made about America itself? Not Trump, but just America itself. Like when you look at the actual, let's call it the extreme leftist sort of philosophies and so forth, aren't they saying that America itself is inherently built on racism? It's structurally racist. It was never great. That's why they're saying, what do you mean make it great again? Oh, are you trying to get back to slavery? When was it ever great? Like you have all of this rhetoric. But then now that Trump's out, it's like, finally, we can be respected around the world again. We can get along with our neighbors again. It's like, wait a second. So we were a great nation before Trump. So when he was saying make it great again, like you were lying when you said it was never great. What were you actually saying? And this is the problem, is you have, this is like the whole double think thing in 1984. It's like you can think two things that totally don't make any sense. They're contradictory, but it's totally fine because it gets you in alignment with what's politically correct.
Yeah.
And what that's all it comes down to is what most people's real actual problem with Trump is that they emotionally, it's like it rubs them the wrong way. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what happens is because of that, because we've been, okay, for example, let's say you had a doctor and he was like, just knew everything, like he was super genius guy, right? But he comes into the office to the doctor's room and he's wearing like sandals and his hair's all long and he's got like a long beard and he's like, got like some like fucking, I don't know, weird t-shirt from like a Grateful Dead concert. And you're like, what the fuck is this? But the guy's like a genius expert in his field. But that visual imagery, you're going to be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I know it's a weird example, but what I'm saying is when people look at Trump, they go, he's not a real politician. That's not how politicians are supposed to be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's so funny.
But isn't that a problem if you're thinking that? Because is Biden the politician that you think he should be? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do all the corporations support him? Does all the mainstream media support him? Why is it that they want someone like that? Why is it that those people, those groups would support him?
Because he follows the rule and he says what he's supposed to say and he stands up there and he makes people feel a certain type of way.
Right. And what are they actually doing in the background?
Manipulate.
And here's the major problem people don't understand, perhaps. Maybe they don't care. While he's going to make you feel good, or it's not going to be just Biden, it's going to be whoever, it's going to be also the media. Are they ever going to report on anything negative that actually is being done?
No, not at all.
You are never going to know. In fact, I saw a tweet from, I forget what group it was. It was like a blue check mark, like some kind of heritage something or other group on Twitter. And they were saying that this term forever wars is an outdated term and we just need to get rid of it because we're in a new landscape. They're already trying to subvert the term forever wars. Why? Because for a fact, Trump has pulled us out of Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, all these points. There's been all these peace deals happening just in the last few months with different Arab nations and Israel and so forth and in other places. And it's like, did Obama do that?
No.
He didn't pull us out of those wars. And so what's going to happen, though, is here's how people are going to justify it within themselves. Oh, all that stuff's necessary, even though before, if it was Bush, they would have hated it. And I'm not saying I liked Bush. I didn't agree with Bush either. So the problem is people associate him with Trump, Republican. So they're all the same. It's like, no, two different things, right? But you'll notice how you had everybody on the left, let's say, really pissed off about the war and all that. But that same war is being continued by Obama. They're just going to want to return to that. Now, I don't know if they're going to return to it, but you know what? I do know for sure, whether they do or don't, you'll never know. If Biden gets elected, there is not going to be anyone ever to push back on him or vice versa. He won't push back on the media. He will not push back on social media. People will be censored. It's like, let me ask y'all a question. Do you think it's possible for us to be censored through AI?
Yeah.
Like, have y'all seen what they're doing to like President Trump's tweets? How they're putting like warning labels and stuff?
Yeah.
They're like banning people and everything.
Yeah.
I want you to imagine like you're texting with your friends and you saying something and then it's like not letting you send it or telling your friend this is not correct information.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that being possible?
Yeah.
Like I see that as a 100% inevitability unless we stand up and we say that's not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mhm.
because that's what's being allowed right now.
What does
So
that
it's
practically look like? What does that practically look like? Standing up and saying that's not acceptable to the degree which we keep it from happening. Like for example, lockdowns,
Mhm.
or that kind of censorship.
who okay, let me put it this way. Let me go back for a second. Y'all remember that video that Kamala Harris tweeted about equality versus equity?
Yeah.
So they're already distancing themselves from equality, which is what we're about, equality. So they're already distancing themselves from equality, saying equity. But I don't know if we addressed this before in another podcast or not, but in that video, she specifically says that it's about love. It's about everybody having the resources they need to be able to compete equally.
Mm-hmm.
So that you end up at the same place. Everyone's going to fixate on the same place part. Everybody ends up at the same place. And I get that, But what I'm really looking at is everyone's giving the resources to be able to compete. Because let's say you get into a dispute with ExxonMobil, you personally, you're going to be given the resources to compete with them.
No.
Like, is it like, but under the law, is a corporation not considered a person?
It is.
Yeah, it is.
It is considered a person. It's a legal person. So they have the same rights technically that you and I have in a lot of ways. They can go to court. Like, why can a corporation itself go into a court if it's not considered a person, just like me or you? Now, is the judge going to say, hold on, before we start, ExxonMobil, you've got $30 billion at your disposal right now, and this guy, makes whatever he makes. There's no way he can keep up with all the legal fees that you guys have. So we're going to level the playing field. You guys are only allowed to spend this much money per hour or something. Are they going to do that?
No.
Like, how does an insurance lawsuit go?
I can't talk about it.
Right? But you see what I'm saying? It's like,
Jake, are you talking about when you got hit by a car?
I can't talk about it, dude.
Oh.
right? But you see my point though? You can't talk about it, right? The point is, when they said that, do you think she means, okay, we're going to level the playing field for all human beings equally? Everyone's going to have enough resources to do everything that they need to live life to the fullest, and no one will be able to oppress them in any way whatsoever.
That is definitely not what she means.
Now, but how many people can't process that? And they're just like programmed by our education system to know that Black people, what they're calling brown people now, is like, which is like, when I was a kid, that was such a racist thing to call somebody brown. I'm not saying it's actually racist. I'm just saying if you said it, it was like, it felt like a racist, like, that's racist. You didn't call it a brown guy. Like, what the hell?
When they were talking about brown back then, were they talking about Mexican brown or Indian brown?
Probably Mexican.
Indian brown.
No, they weren't talking about Indian. Right?
In Canada.
Oh, in Canada. Yeah.
Definitely Indian.
But all I'm saying is, it's just another example of playing with the language, right? But what I'm saying is, it's like, this whole thing is manipulating us through emotions so that we feel good. People would honestly, in the first world, honestly rather have Joe Biden make them feel good about something than actually they're not even going to take the time to investigate what's actually going on, are they?
Oh yeah, no.
Because as soon as you get the good feeling, you're like, well, I mean, it's good. Like, I'm feeling good. The media says everything's good. I'm feeling good. Everything's good. Let's just go back to 2015, before Trump. Okay. Before 2014. Were there any problems in this world?
Yes,
Was America doing anything around the world that wasn't best?
Yeah.
of course.
Isn't that what people are saying they want to go back to?
Yeah.
And more, because now they want all the racial justice theory and all this other stuff too, which we've talked about this stuff. But what I'm saying is, people are not processing the point. It's not even about logically, they're not even using any common sense. But what's even more problematic about it is they don't want to know.
Yeah.
They just want to feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So all that's happening. Sorry, go ahead, Jess.
I had somebody tell me that they refused to watch a video I sent them because the title it was like a clickbait title. And I thought to myself, all news medias use clickbait title. All videos uses clickbait title. So you're just refusing to watch it simply because it's not in alignment with what you first thought about this situation before I showed you the video.
That's right.
So
They
you
don't want to change
refuse
their
to
mind.
watch it.
Did y'all see that thing I sent in the group chat about the what was that thing with the Russian
Your
guy?
butt- your
civilian
butthole?
guy?
Oh.
What?
What?
Did you say butthole?
No, I thought you sent. No, that was their private chat. Never mind. Yeah, no, the Russian guy. Yeah, about talking about the history of electoral fraud.
He had this really cool. Well, he was talking about how you subvert a country and turn them into Soviets.
Oh,
and communists.
That was epic, man.
Yeah.
But he
that's
made this
true.
really cool
15
point.
to 20 years. That one, right?
But he made this point. He said, You
Wow.
can't subvert a population against their will.
Yeah.
And you know, it's interesting because if you study history, he made the point about the Japanese society. If you go back in history, there was like this whole period of like trade expanding around the world, and they couldn't break into, the Europeans couldn't break into the Chinese society because they were basically like, and the Japanese, because they were like basically wanted their society to stay the way it was.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't want it to change. So they were very suspicious of anybody from the outside, and they would kick them out easily. And what he was saying is that in the American society, it's like we like embrace people to come in and change things, right? The reason I bring it up is because it's like you don't want your mindset to change. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So you're not willing to consider anything else. Your feelings come up. You don't want to change anything. You don't want to take responsibility. So how many people are actually looking at politics right now and looking at it as not whether I like this or I like that? And it's okay if you like it, but whether you like it or not, are you looking at what's the actual practical consequences of it? Because the biggest complaint, for example, going back to Trump, people usually have is he makes us look stupid around the world. Like we're laughed at. It's like, it's not something real.
Yeah.
Because think about this, not even is it the media just that wants Trump in, it's also every other country. Sorry, I meant to say Biden.
Biden. Yeah.
They all want him in too. So why would that be the case?
Because Trump actually stands up against other countries and has made real legitimate deals to support the United States, which then took away resources from the other countries, or are the ban against, or he took away the ban of like we had to do our business with certain countries, and so now like we're free to do business with who we want in that area, and like different things like that, which actually was negative to those countries because like, oh, now we don't automatically get their money, we don't automatically get these things from them.
They don't have as much leverage on us in certain deals, things like that.
Is it because like he was hurting anybody? How many wars did he start?
Yeah, I know.
None.
None.
The fact that no one even thought of even trying to start a war with Trump.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like no one even thought of doing it.
They would manipulate Biden and they would start wars with him. Well, and potentially we could be going against the peace treaties that Trump was a part of. I mean, like there's like a lot of different things that are up in the air if Biden gets put in, because Trump, yeah, he may have sounded like a bully, but he was very firm and he would take action and he would stand up.
Let me ask you a question. Okay, because you made a point about the bully thing, which a lot of people say, and I understand why you're bringing it up. What is a bully? When people say that word, what do they actually mean by it?
Someone who
not in the context of Trump, but like if I said you're a real bully, like
bully's like someone who makes another person feel bad, like calls them out, beats them up, whatever.
Like consistently, right? Not just like one time, like, you know, because people wouldn't say that guy's a bully. I mean, you might say he's being like a bully, but generally when they say that, it's like you're just constantly like shitting on people, pissing on people, beating them up emotionally, making them feel bad, and just because of some like within yourself some insecurity. That's usually like what people think, right?
Yeah.
But let's say there was a guy who people were constantly talking shit about and trying to beat up. And then he started saying, hey, fuck you guys. Like, you're an idiot. You're short. You're fat, whatever. He's fighting back. Would that person be a bully?
No.
The problem is when you're in the anti-Trump sort of mindset right now, you didn't see any of the fighting and all this stuff. Because what you perceived it as is, I'm not bullying this guy. I'm fighting back against Hitler. He's literally Hitler right there.
Yeah.
But okay, but where was the point where the guy became Hitler? It's like, well, it's like we've been fighting against this guy since day one because from the moment he was born, he was Hitler. Is that what you're saying? Where was the point where he became that?
Yeah.
Because you can trace it all back. I know. I mean, I look at the information. You can trace it all back. Boom. CNN says Trump calls all Mexicans rapists. It all goes back to then.
What about grab her by the pussy?
That was after that.
Oh my God.
That was after that. And also, let me ask you a question. I just want to test something real quick. What did Trump actually say?
Grab her by the pussy?
He just
Or the-
randomly said, "Grab her by the pussy."
Or the
No, yeah, I'm talking about that specifically. Yeah.
Wasn't he like in a bus and then he said something like they'll just let you do anything when you have power or something like that?
You're not even sure.
No, no.
Can somebody pull up the transcript of it?
Let us do it.
Okay, I'm on it.
Pull up the transcript, like the actual, not just what a report of what he said, like the actual what he said.
Wow.
Not the audio, but the transcript if you can.
Uh-huh. Might take me some time.
That's fine.
That's fine.
But if you look back at the rape Mexicans are rapists thing, for example, what he was actually talking about, and I know what he was talking about because he said it. Like if you look at the context of what he said, and I'm saying this from the perspective of I didn't like Trump. And then when I saw this and then I saw the reporting on it and I had seen with my own eyes what he actually said, I was like, something's up here. There, I can see the manipulation occurring of making this person look bad. Now, the problem is imagine every single thing you did was already in the context of you're a bad person. No matter what you did, everything you did was somehow slightly misrepresented to make it look negative when it really wasn't.
Yeah.
Did y'all see the somebody tweeted, they were like, my kid came and gave me a hug today after Biden was announced, and they were like, no more, there's not going to be any more cages or kids in cages, mommy. And somebody tweeted back, they were like, did you tell him who built the cages?
Yeah.
Because like, no, everyone's just overlooking that.
Right.
You know, those pictures that they were sharing and so forth was from when Obama rather, was in office.
Yeah. The interesting thing, like we were talking earlier about Scott Adams, right? And his take on AI, which I really like his take on AI, right? But he was saying if the AI wins, right? What's the result that the AI is going to want? It's going to want to create the most uncertainty, the most confusion, the most like divide between people. And the result that ends up with that is basically Trump becomes president, where it's this whole process where Biden gets called the president. Then, and it's cool because Scott Adams was talking about this like a couple weeks ago or a week ago, at least. He was saying this is likely going to be the scenario where we're going to have two presidents at one point, right? Or both of them are going to be called president at one point, right?
He says on inauguration day, Joe Biden, the media said Joe Biden won. So Joe Biden's going to go in there, with his metaphorical moving trucks. And Trump's going to be like, what are you here for? And then, right, they're going to be like, you're supposed to be leaving. Like Joe Biden is the president. Trump's going to be like, what are you guys talking about? It's like crazy.
See, the bigger point, I know you found that transcript, want to go back to it, but I want to just say something real quick. The bigger issue over all of this, and like why I constantly bring up the points about, what Trump really said and so forth. It's like, eventually Trump's not going to be in office. So I've looked at the information. I see he's the best fit in terms of what he will do. And I know he's not going to do things to harm people. If I saw that, I wouldn't agree with it. You see what I'm saying? And there was points where I was skeptical, where I'm like, well, he said this, let's see what he actually does. And then he would actually do it. And I wasn't just getting my information from the mainstream. You see what I'm saying? I wasn't just getting that, because when you're doing that, you're just getting the headline. It's designed like scientifically in a lab to make you feel a certain way. And so you don't get the real information. It's not, the media is not there. The news and so forth is not there to tell you about reality, what it really is. It's there to give to create a perception of reality that they want, that benefits them, their shareholders, the corporations, the owners, and so forth, and the establishment people who also, use that as a vehicle to continue staying in power. And if you can't see that, it's like, do you really think that the only evil people in this world is literally just Trump and his family? Is that really what you think? Like, let's just say you take Trump and like his family doesn't exist anymore. There's no more evil in this world? Oh, it's just Putin.
I think
Like-
the argument that most people have though isn't that it's just that Trump is evil. It's that he represents the evil and he gives it a name and a face, and like he's leading the charge for all the racism to be.
Yeah. See, the problem is, how are they defining racism now?
Well, you know, it has to be racist plus power. Then it
Do you
could
see
be
how it's being manipulated now? It's all the language, everything's been manipulated. It's like, okay, he gives people permission to be racist. It's like,
Mhm.
well, how? Because white people are less afraid to like speak up for themselves now in a climate where you're not supposed to talk because you're white. So, but that by definition is now racist. Like, really look at it. If you look at the people who take this all the way and they really adhere to it, they're not just like fucking at a salad bar taking what they like and don't like. They're going all the way with it. They're like, if there's a black person, there's a white person, and the black person wants to talk, the white person shuts up.
at the
That's
salad
called
bar.
making space.
Yeah,
You see what I'm saying? Like, that's a real thing. I'm not making this up.
yeah.
I don't feel threatened by it. It's not like I have an emotional feeling threatened and I'm like, oh, I just stepped for the white race. Like, no, that shouldn't be allowed either way. And I know in the past that people who are not, let's say, white also have been at disadvantages. But that's the case of everybody in the world.
Here's the litmus test, right? Back 100 years ago, yeah, about 100 years ago, maybe a little more, if there was a black person and a white person and the white person was going to talk, the black person had to shut up.
Yeah.
Was it racist then?
Yes.
Okay, so then if we flip the races around, wouldn't it still be racist?
You know, I'm really glad you said that too, because I just realized something. What is it that made it racist back then if the white person did it? And that's also the same as why it's racist if the white person does it today.
Because they're in power, or
Okay.
more. There's more white people in power than blacks.
Name one major corporation that thinks white people should have power.
Name one major corporation that thinks white people should have power.
Yeah.
It would
Like
be hard
openly.
pressed. Hard pressed.
Openly doesn't. Yeah, I don't know.
Like,
Any of that
name
openly.
any power structure in society that says, yes, white people are at the top and should stay at the top. Name one power structure.
I couldn't think of.
So do you
one
see what
at
I'm
the
getting
top
at
of my
though?
head.
Meaning
Yeah.
now people who are non-white have the power. This total power system and structure is supporting that. So now where do we go? Now do we say, oh, now it's racist again the other way, so we got to flip it back? Like, you see, that's the whole point about revolution, why it doesn't work. Because it's literally take the thing that's not right and then just flip it. You just flip the haves and the have-nots, and now it's fine. Yeah, until the people who have not get really pissed off again.
Yeah.
Like that's and the problem is what's really going on is this is why with me, that's why I'm saying I'm being serious when I don't have an emotional reaction to white people being taken out of power, because that's not what's happening. Nobody's getting the power. You see what I'm saying? It's not actually like black people or brown people or whatever are getting the power and white people are oppressed by them. That's not actually what's happening. That's not what was happening before either. It's the top 1% of the 1% of the world controlling everything because they have the resources, they have the control over. If you control whether somebody has drinking water or not, if you control if somebody can fill up their car with gas, if you control what goes into people's food, if you control what subjects their kids study in school, that's who has the power. The people ultimately who make those decisions. So it's not white people and it's not now black people or whatever. But here's the really weird thing about it is people think that that's what's happening. People actually think and are happy about the fact that it's being reversed. Why is it that so important that Kamala Harris is a black Indian American, all this stuff? Because now she's in power and that's what we need.
Okay, you know what else is really interesting about that is people felt that way when Obama became president. That now there was an opportunity for blacks to do things. And I get it because I felt that way as well. I felt that way as far as like Obama becoming president was like, oh, it's possible for a black person to be president. Because part of the reason why I felt that way was because of this rhetoric that I would hear from other black people all the time, which was, yeah, but you won't ever become president because they won't let black people become president.
Okay, before I wanted to say something. Okay, if you went to Nigeria, would people think that?
No.
So, what's the majority of the population in America?
White.
So, wouldn't it make more sense that most of the time, if not all the time, it would be a white person?
Yeah.
Now, does that mean it's right or best? I'm not saying that. But when someone says, oh, a black person cannot be president, like, what, you couldn't be president of any country?
Well,
Do you see what I'm saying?
we
Now-
want to be president of the best. Come on.
Now, hold on, which I'm not saying that's a problem. I'm just follow me here for a second. Why is it a problem if there's, let's just say hypothetically, there was never a black person who was ever president of the United States? Why would that be a problem? Like, what's the argument? What's the feeling there that it's a problem?
Because then you can't actually do anything. You can't actually do whatever you want to be, right? That's only reserved for this group of people, white people. Right?
But I'm not saying it's not because they can't. I'm just saying, let's say that never happened.
Mhm. No, but that's the argument though, is because
but let me ask you a question. How many presidents have we had in history?
45.
Okay. 100 years from now, how many more presidents will we have had?
Probably half
maximum.
that. Maybe
Maximum, like
maybe
25,
90.
maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, so maybe total
90,
70,
yeah.
80, 90, whatever it is.
Right.
So let me ask you a question. Why, let's just be real, okay? Black child sitting here. Why should they become president? Let's say you have a white child sitting there. Why should they become president? How many presidents will ever exist in the history of the human race? How many presidents of the United States will there be?
I just did the math. 100 years from now, there can only be 25 because
Right, because like every 4 years at
Yeah.
most, right?
Yeah.
So why is it like, okay, just hear me out. If this doesn't make sense, you guys tell me because I really want to articulate it. Why is it important that any child feels they can be president?
So
Like-
they could have high
like,
self-esteem.
is it imp-
Actually,
Let me ask you a question. Is it important that every single child feels that?
I
No.
think-
Or is it just that some should, and it should be equally distributed in the race? So are we saying every child in America should feel I could be president someday?
I think that's the approach that we take.
That's the sentiment, right?
Yeah.
Is that practically possible though?
No.
No.
No, exactly.
When a parent says like, oh, my child could be president, like, are they thinking, cool, my child could study the world and understand economics and business and trade and everything, and they can really go into be the president and make the best decisions for everybody? Or is it what?
I want them to feel special, like they don't have limitations, something like that.
You see what I'm
Exactly.
saying? So even the argument of like, well, when Obama became president, it showed all of us, and I'm not saying it was a bad thing that happened, but that's the only good thing that you can say about it. And even if you break it down logically, it's not valid from the perspective of if every single black child had an effective vocabulary and education, and they had a high self-esteem because of that, would they care if they could be president or not?
No.
Or would they just be like, I'm here, I'm going to look at what's best for me to do in my life that I can contribute and I can give as I want to receive?
And how did Obama become the first black president if there was no black presidents before him?
I don't know. Magic.
Like, do you really need an example of it? Because if that was the thing that you were like, oh my God, I have hope that I can have like some kind of self-esteem, you're not gonna make it.
But
Right.
like
That's
self-esteem
a great
isn't
point.
based on
It's not the
only
same thing as Joe Biden getting elected and everyone feeling good about that.
how is it any
That's the
different?
same thing.
And how is it better that Kamala Harris has to be his vice president and she couldn't run and beat him for the presidency?
Yeah.
So fucking bad.
And then they're
for the
still
Democratic
celebrating it like it's historic,
Party.
everything she's done. And it's like I would think like if people were being genuine, if they were being serious about it and it was like really coming from them, they would be like, this is an outrage. How dare they put up a black woman here just to manipulate us? And it's second best. She should be the one that should be president. He should be like, do the right thing and be like, you know what? I was put into this position by a white racist power structure, and I'm going to give Kamala my presidency, and I will be the vice president. I don't even know if that's practically possible, but he should do that. Like if they were being genuine about it. I'm not saying that's the best thing to do,
But just
but
if
they were
consistent
really
in
actually
the
living what they're
logic,
saying.
if they were
Yeah.
consistent in the logic of white men are evil and women and black people should be promoted to
Yeah,
have that
seriously.
equality, it's like, okay, then get
Wow.
this sorted out because there's a white
All
man.
white people are racist, yes, okay. And yet we just voted for a white guy, and now we as black people, brown people, women, trans, whatever, feel a sigh of relief that white racist guy is no longer the president. It's like, but you just elected another one.
Yeah.
And all of the major corporations support it. All the major media networks support it. All the other world leaders
Have you
support
guys
it.
seen that?
All the ones who have been holding up this entire racist power structure this whole fucking time. Like,
I'll support that.
like what I don't understand, what I don't really, well, no, I do know. I'm not going to pretend I don't know. No one actually gives a fuck about any of the stuff they're saying.
No.
They're just trying to manipulate reality by being depressed and being angry. And then they think that that's going to somehow make them happy. And you know what? That is the best position to be in if you're a salesperson, if you're a client in that state.
Mm.
If they are just demanding that someone make them feel good.
Yeah.
It's like easy sale.
Yeah. They're just,
all you got to do is just be like really nice to them and just listen to what they say and be like, yeah. And like, then you take everything and like, it's like, they're just sitting there over here while you're just doing what you need to do. You know what I mean?
You're
They're
like,
just
do you,
like,
you want me to sign your name for you?
Yeah. They're like, yeah. Just, they're like, oh, finally someone to talk. Like, that's literally what's happening. You don't think all these corporations are like, fuck, this is amazing.
So that's the point with what Scott Adams was saying, is basically like either they're going to, with the AI thing that I was bringing up earlier.
Uh-huh.
Either way, either Biden supporters are going to feel cheated out of this, or Trump supporters are going to feel cheated out of this. But
Mhm.
half the country is going to be fucking pissed.
Yeah.
Either way.
Right.
No
matter what.
That's exactly what it creates more conflict. It's exactly what the mind consciousness system wants. So this is why I like, when Scott Adams talks about AI, because I see it as he's really talking about the mind consciousness system.
Right.
See, look at this point too, because the one side openly presents itself as the love and the tolerance and all of that. I'm okay with saying I don't give a fuck about that.
Mm-hmm.
I want everybody to have what they need. I want their feelings of enjoyment to be from what they give to reality, not what they demand someone else give them. Okay? If you need me to say your correct pronoun, otherwise you go into an emotional tailspin, that's a problem, even if I say it. You still have that problem. Mm-hmm. You're still teetering on the edge, just looking for something to set you off.
Yeah.
So the side, and again, it's not really about sides, it's just the way it's playing out at the moment, okay? That's saying it's love and tolerance and all this stuff is now breathing a sigh of relief because finally they can feel good, right? But if they're all about love and compassion, don't they have to recognize that half the country, I'm not putting myself in this category, but half the country who is just the average Trump supporter is feeling like totally cheated, upset, pissed off, angry, just like the other people felt potentially when they lost. Mm-hmm. So why didn't they in the last 4 years express that love and compassion and unify with that side and get fully behind the person that they supported? Isn't that what they're expecting to happen on their side now? Mm-hmm. But where were they willing to do it?
No.
And now they're demanding, or technically not demanding it, but basically that's what Biden was doing. If you guys watched that speech he gave last night, that is the time to unify and the time to heal now. It's time to put all of the partisan politics aside.
Basically, I really, really fucked around for 4 years and we really said some really nasty, lying, hateful shit. Can you just let it go, please?
Yeah, can you really just let it go now?
Let me do this thing, please.
I didn't let you have those 4 years.
Just slowly go to sleep. So, as we unroll everything over the next 4 years,
No, I mean heal. I meant heal, sorry.
Yeah, heal.
You need to rest when you heal, though, so just take a rest.
You see that
But
healing thing. It's like you're a victim. What were you gonna say, Asa?
but like he based his like when he was announcing he was running for presidency, it was based off bullshit.
Yeah.
And the whole, even afterwards, like the central feature of his campaign is the Fine People hoax.
Yeah.
He's like, I know, like we lied and we did some really terrible things to disparage things. And I know, yeah, like my family's pretty fucked up. Like, yeah, we did some stuff and I'm not going to deny it, but I mean, come on. You shouldn't be posting hack material on Twitter, but please just let's get together because now I'm in power and everything is going to be okay if you just let go. If you just let go.
Isn't it so obvious that it's like a big, like you just said, Mitch, go to sleep now. It's all good. It's okay now. Hush, hush. Go back to sleep now. It's okay. We're all back to normal.
Riled you up for a whole 4 years, and now we just want you to be silent so we can do the things that we want to do to feed these major corporations who are backing us and the people in power in the other countries who are backing us. And now you get to be quiet and just let us do it because.
And what is it now? Because what did they use that 4 years to do?
Wait,
To
Drake,
get
Drake,
the
wait,
ability
hang
to just
on,
ban
hang on.
people.
Hang on. Because what Jess just said just reminded me of exactly what we were watching in that video, the Russian guy, when he was talking about subversion. It's exactly what he says as far as you get these people to become the community leaders. They're the sleepers. They're like what we think of as like a sleeper cell or a sleeper who's like in some kind of government. It's like an agent. We think of like an agent just wakes up, like you say the magic words and then they all of a sudden they
start like killing people.
They start, yeah, exactly. Yeah. They start assassinating.
Yeah.
But
wow.
What he described as the sleeper was really just these people that you've educated in this way. Then they start going out and they wake up within themselves and kind of feel like, I need to become a community leader. I need to go out and, you know, strike for or protest for this and like get these rights for, you know, gays or trans or blacks or browns, whatever, right?
Right.
But then after they've done all the shit, they do all the work, they rile everybody up. Once the momentum has gotten to the place where you've brought that country to where you want it to go, then they say, we don't need you anymore. Just hush, hush.
Wow.
Okay, you're removed now.
Wow. And
that is what's happening.
It's always you know, like the very original concept of a sleeper agent is like, well, from my understanding, right? And I never looked into it, it's just what I've heard. Is like you got people walking around, they got some microchip in them, and then broadcasted globally is like the sequence of words. It's like, you know, it's like completely presidential speech, and the lamb is in the hen house, and then it's like a random like statement, and then everyone's like assassinate like this person.
Yeah.
But that concept of, ladies and gentlemen, we have a racist president. It's like activate, and then everybody goes. It's like we have a racist president. We have a bigoted president. Whatever the sequence of words that got programmed into us, and I'm saying us, like humanity in North America, right? North America, like Canada included.
What is it? This is a threat to our democracy. That thing.
Right.
Oh my
Operation
God.
Mockingbird.
Right, right.
And over and over and over.
Why aren't people like, hey, Trump is trying to claim that there was all this voter fraud. Why don't we just recount everything and prove that motherfucker wrong?
That's what I was thinking too.
That is how we make sure our democracy works, is we just put it all on the table and be like, look at us, world. No one look at this evil Trump dude trying to claim this. Let's just do all the recounts and let's do it again anyways. What does it matter? We still have until January. But you won't see anyone saying that because that's not really what's happening right now. What's happening right now is they're like, okay, I don't know how to describe it, because I'm looking at how, when I'm in my own self-honesty, like how I feel about it, how I perceive it, you see what I mean? And it's like the perception, although I don't actually feel this way, it's like I can see this point. It's like you took the most powerful man in the world and you just made him irrelevant. It's like this woman has a man. She's saying he's being abusive and all this stuff, right? You got the kids involved and everything, right? And they're having this big fight. And then the stepdad comes in and suddenly the kids are living with the stepdad and the mom. And it's like the dad's just irrelevant now. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like that sort of that's like what the media is doing right now. It's like everything is just like, all right, we've got our social media. Anything that they say, voter fraud, whatever, we'll tag it, we'll make it look stupid, we'll just suppress stuff, no one will know about it. The media is just going to declare him the winner. We're just going to keep going forward. Do the speech, Biden. Okay, cool. Look, show them being in low, loving in the streets, and everything's so amazing now, and the world is great. And like, let's just keep going. All right, cool. Meanwhile, okay, we have this many bombs and missiles we need to fill those orders for because Trump stopped doing that. So let's get that back into production. And what are they going to be saying next? It's like it's all. How do people not realize if they're saying that the Trumps and the racists and all this stuff, isn't that they were saying that previous administrations was demonizing like Muslims and so forth?
Yeah.
How are they not seeing that that's what's happening to the Trump people? Do you see what I mean? Like, isn't it just the same thing? It's just an enemy for you to focus on so that way you don't see what's really going on.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely what it is.
But the problem is that it's like there's an acceptable rate. There's an acceptable list of things to discriminate against. Like, imagine it was like people with glasses. Like, you're not allowed to, but if they have beards, people with beards, you can hate them. It's like black people. If you're saying shit against black people, not allowed. If you're saying against white people, I know that we were saying if you say it against black people, it's racist, but we need to change that. Okay, no anti-black racism. Racism is fine, but just not anti-black racism. You can be racist to white people; it's fine. They're on the white list. They're on like the list that you're
Acceptable
allowed
list of things to hate.
of things to hate. Exactly. So it's like Republicans, you're allowed to hate them. They're fucking neo-Nazi.
Yeah. But we're the party. But hate is they're the ones who hate.
Exactly. We
But
don't.
it's okay
hate
for us to hate them
It's all
because
about
they're the ones who
tolerance on
hate
this side.
people. They just hate
Exactly.
people. We only hate them because they're hateful.
Exactly.
So our
We're all
hate
about
is
tolerance,
acceptable
but we
hate.
don't tolerate the intolerant.
That's like
Right.
I
We're
had
not
a-
going to tolerate that.
I had a conversation with a friend where we were talking about Hitler, and he goes,
Classic.
if we could
Typical
just take
conversation.
all the people, the Nazis, if we could take all those people who are like Hitler and all them, and just put them into like a room and just kill them all, that would be great.
Like, somebody else had that idea. I think you might like this guy. You ever read Mein Kampf?
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay, let's go into that for a second though, because this is a thing that I see, and it's always had a hard time finding the way to express it. But it's like we don't like Trump. Let's just use Trump as an example. We don't like him because the way he says things is like how Hitler would say it. It's like he's doing things. He's hateful. He's a bully. He does all these things. But we have to now bully him and bully his supporters and put him on lists and all this stuff because we have to stop him from being like that. And it's like, but what is it that you don't like about him? He does those things. So the things that you're saying you need to do to stop him, yes. But what is it you don't like about him? The fact that he does these types of things.
But then
you see what I'm trying to say? It's like
you don't like about him.
It's right. Just the fact that he does X, Y, and Z. Okay, are you doing X, Y, and Z to him? Yes. Why? Because he does X, Y, and Z, and that makes him an evil person. Inherently, doing those things makes you evil.
Well,
Is
then
there any
you're
context that matters? No, the context doesn't matter. We don't need to look at the context. It's evil. Okay, are you doing those things? Yes, but in our context, it's because of this. And it's like I'm trying to do a parody, but I'm really that's really actually what it is.
Yeah. And
I don't like him because he says the press is bad, right? But okay, let's say there's a news organization like Breitbart or Newsmax or something that says something against what you believe. It's like, oh, they're just fake news. It's like,
bullshit,
but you're literally doing the thing that you said he's bad for doing, and that's why you hate him so much.
Yeah.
Show me the actual outcome of something that you don't like. Like, show me the actual result that is not best, which is what you're upset about.
Yeah.
And
because I can say what I didn't like about the previous administrations was the fact that we were always funding wars and killing people. Do you know what I mean? Like that is which is a stark contrast to this. And every time Trump pulled out anywhere, what did everybody say in the mainstream? Shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that should be the biggest red flag. And it's not just about the wars, and it's also, it's like, we can look at the context of Okay, we're talking about what's best for all, right? Is it best for all for us to have a system where people in other countries are under sanctions because their governments are doing things that are against the United States?
No.
In an ideal sense, no. But how do we change that?
We have to create a world that is where you can take care of your own people, we can take care of our own people, and everyone has what they need.
Yeah.
You heard
Where we can
Biden's
actually
gonna-
cooperate.
You heard Biden's gonna revoke the America First policy.
Isn't that brilliant?
That's what Scott Adams was talking about. He's like, it was really smart to put. So
To
Trump
brand it
says,
that way. Yeah.
Trump says, I'm going to put America first, and I think every country should put their country first. Fair. And and Biden's going to revoke the America First policy.
It's because he's getting
So-
so much money from other countries.
I mean, if I was in
Okay,
his
let me ask you a
position-
question. What if China came out today and said, we think the Chinese are the best people and we want to make our country the best it can possibly be? Let's be serious for a second. Would any Democrat say, that's fucking evil?
No,
What would they
No.
say?
that's acceptable. That
That's
makes
their
sense.
right. They should do that.
I'm excited
Yeah.
to
But
see. what
why
they
is it
come
that
up
if
with.
we do that in America, that's wrong? Like, can you see that America is the white person of the world? Like, do you see that? That it's not really about white and black. Remember we had this whole discussion about what they really mean by white and
By
black.
yeah.
Like white means, I know someone's gonna take this out the wrong way.
You're gonna say good.
I was gonna say it means like effective. Black means not effective. It means bad.
Right.
Yeah, white means good, but black means bad. It doesn't actually have anything to do with your skin color.
Right.
We know that. We've already gone through this. Okay. So it's like that with America. I mean, you guys, we're all roughly the same age, relatively speaking, right? Within like 8 or 10 years,
Yeah. No.
15 years.
20, whatever.
What I'm saying is, well, but you're in Canada anyways. But you guys, okay, you're a little bit younger than me, right? When you were growing up, were you always told like America is like not respected? No one likes Americans. We're like assholes. You know, America is bad and all this stuff. And the West is all
America's fat, America's dumb.
that didn't start with Trump.
Right.
And also it's like
Yeah, it's so
if
true.
you go into a negotiating room and they're like, dude, there's no way I'm going to be able to pull a fast one on this guy. Isn't that respect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I respect you guys because I know if I say something, you're going to be like, well, hold on, that doesn't make sense. You're not just going to go, oh, yeah, okay, sure. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Don't you respect
100%.
that from me? Like, I'm going to be like,
Absolutely.
no, that doesn't make sense.
And I've tried that many,
But-
many times on you too. Yeah.
But it's like, I respect your ability to be like, okay, let me look at this point.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So respect is not like,
Man, he's
I
a really
just-
he's a really nice guy. Like he's really cool. I respect him.
Like, loving, like unity and healing, right? Like,
I thought you respected me because I dress like this.
No, you don't.
do we
Respected
do we live?
Skin color is the way it is.
Say again?
I thought you respected me because my skin color is the way
Right.
it is.
No, I respect you because you identify as a woman. That's why. That's
You know,
why.
oh, real quick, I was thinking about
thought
this.
You respected me because the things that I said made you feel good.
Oh,
Okay, let me
that's
ask you guys a question. Let me ask you a question. Let's just look at trans stuff, for example, for a second. Why is it that if a person identifies as a man, but they're in a what we would call a biological female body, let's put it the other way around. They're a man that identifies as they're a biological male that identifies as a woman. And I say, I don't want that person to be able to go in the women's restrooms. Okay. What would be the argument for why they should be allowed in?
Why they should be allowed? Because it would make them feel uncomfortable to go into the men's restroom.
What's the problem with that argument?
Is that you're not taking into account all of the women who are feeling uncomfortable because of this biological man in their
Like,
restroom.
if they have if their feelings have a say in it, how come my feelings don't have a say in it?
Right.
And why is it that the way they feel about
have,
themselves is valid, but the way I feel about them is hate?
Right.
and you also
What if the
don't need
truth
to
is they
have-
hate themselves?
Oh shit.
You see what I'm saying? Like, what if they hate themselves and that's why they want to switch? We never examined that. You're not allowed to ask that question. But what if the reality is I love everybody And I don't want them to be in a situation, or my children or my wife or any woman or whatever, in a situation where something is not best.
Yeah.
And it's not because I hate this person, but because I'm not going to allow their emotions to dictate what is actually the best structure of something. But why? So you can't make the argument based on feelings, but that's the only argument.
Mhm.
Is like, well, if you don't allow them in there, you're traumatizing them.
They're already.
But if I say I'm being traumatized, I'm hateful.
Right. You're not being open or caring.
But isn't this the Joe Biden
administration?
Isn't
Their platform.
this what Joe Biden, in terms of everything he's saying, and Kamala Harris and the whole presentation of the Democratic Party, isn't that what they represent?
Yeah.
They represent the feelings of the individual are the most important thing. And let me ask you guys a question. Do you think any of those people actually give a fuck about anyone else's feelings?
No, of course not.
Because they
And
know
just
how they can manipulate and get power and control.
yeah. And let me ask you guys a question, because Drake, you said it earlier. It's like that point where, okay, we got what we wanted. Now you could just go away. Now we don't care about you anymore.
And that was
Who is
fascinating.
it?
That was fascinating.
Who is it that's going to step forth as the actual master?
Kamala Harris.
No.
The globalists.
The elite, the
Yeah.
corporations,
The corporations, yeah. Those who like the
Jeff
global
Bezos
reset.
wants to buy CNN. Did you guys hear this?
I saw that.
What'd you say?
I did not see that.
Jeff Bezos wants to buy CNN, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Didn't you share something like that?
Yeah.
So he's got the Washington Post. So okay,
What would that imply?
hang on.
Think about the AI technology now
That's fucking crazy, man.
available, and they know everything about us. And
Look
now
at-
CNN has access to that.
Buying habits.
Look at that, and also look at Bill Gates. It's like they're the same person. They're the same, as in they created something that became the absolute best, outcompeted anyone and everyone, and then moved on to how can I get more control? With Jeff Bezos, he bought the Washington Post. Now he's buying CNN. It's like, how do I control people's perceptions and what they think, right?
You guys
And
know
what they
when
think. And then with Bill Gates, it's okay, now I'm in every home, or any home that is worth being in, because if you have technology, you've got some Microsoft product, no question about it.
Yeah.
And okay, now how do I stop people thinking I'm evil? Okay, let me put on this sweater, right? And then let me start donating all my money to my own charity, where I can just use that money freely however I want, and go, oh, we've donated hundreds of millions to the WHO. What does that mean? That means we control the WHO. We are paying, they're on our payroll. Like, imagine if you're donating to a politician, if you're donating to a judge, if you're donating to any of these kinds of authority figures, they're on your payroll. If the mafia were donating a bunch of money to anyone, you'd be like, there's something up there.
Yeah. If you found out the
Hey.
mafia was donating to, you'd be like, wait a second.
Right?
What hand did they have in
I have a
there?
question for you guys. Okay. I don't look it up. When do you think Mr. Rogers died?
Oh, fuck.
I'm not trying to go into a conspiracy about his death. I'm just
2013.
no.
When Bill Gates started putting on that sweater.
No, but hold on. He died in 2003.
2003?
2003.
Really?
Yeah, let me go
okay.
back and just double check what I read.
Yeah.
I thought it was like more recent than that.
Yeah. They
It
came out
says
with
two. Okay, why do you think that?
for
Bill
Mr.
Gates
Rogers.
has been wearing that sweater.
Hold on. No, that's not actually not why. Why do you think Mr. Rogers died recently?
Because there was a movie about him.
When did it come out?
Well, I don't know. 2019.
September 2019.
Okay.
Yeah,
What?
but
Think about what you just said about Bill Gates and the sweater and everything.
Uh-huh.
oh.
Oh, it's the image that we all have from
When
our
it hits.
fucking childhood of the trusted authority that was on Mr. Rogers.
My point is, why did that movie come out just last year at the end of the year?
What movie?
I don't know. Like,
There's a
I don't know.
movie
Maybe
about
that
a-
was just when they decided to make it.
There's a movie about Bill Rogers, about Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers' life, right?
Yeah.
And then that just came out last year. It makes sense now because
That's crazy.
you get reinforced with that imagery of guy in a sweater. He's the good guy. He's my childhood. He's that nostalgic, like,
That
I love
movie
this guy.
pulled at your heartstrings too. That movie got your
I
feelings.
didn't even fucking
It
watch
was
it.
like,
I didn't see
let
it.
me emotionally get attached to this movie quick. And then shortly after we have this pandemic, and who swoops in and says, I have the cure. I can solve you with my drugs. Buy my drugs and trust me, I am authority, and I look like your childhood friend, Mr. Rogers, who always made you feel good.
You know what else is interesting about that is like, okay, Mitch just said he never saw it. I never saw it. I'm assuming neither of you did either, but Jess did, right? Okay, check this out. How much do they spend on creating a movie? Millions, right?
Millions.
Tens of millions.
This one's budget was 25 million,
25 million. Okay, cool.
which is small for a
25
movie, but
That is
but
very
considering
small for a
it
movie.
was. But
But
it's not like
it's
some
average.
CGI shit.
It's
How much-
average if it's
how
not
much
like action.
do they spend for an ad in the Super Bowl?
I don't even know, $1 million
Millions.
or something. Yeah.
Millions for like 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you can put out a movie or you can start creating a movie. You can get some great actors, whatever, and then just put out a trailer. You don't even have to have the whole movie, or not everyone has to see the movie. You just get a few people to see the movie, but you put out that trailer. That's a commercial that's running that everyone sees, especially if it's got a celebrity. Everyone's going to at least watch that 2-3 minute commercial. And these days, the entire movie said in that trailer. You don't have to watch that fucking movie. You know that. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know the fucking ending as soon as you watch it. You're like, oh, I get it. Right? That's like inseminating that idea in every individual's mind and just going with like, okay, it's done. The movie doesn't even have to make money. As far as like, if you're looking at it from the perspective of Hollywood is trying to manipulate people and
Guys,
yeah.
You're
sorry.
doing the Mitchell Snyder.
I'm sorry. Who played Mr. Rogers?
I don't remember.
Is it Tom Hanks?
Tom fucking Hanks.
Tom Hanks does. Okay, there you go.
And you remember like when he got coronavirus, he's like one of the first big celebrities. Do you remember
Yeah.
this? It just fucking clicked. I'm like, wait a second. Because I remember it was like Tom Hanks. I was talking about Tom Hanks getting coronavirus.
Wow.
Tom
Like,
Hanks.
this is like some fucked up shit.
Just
And
imagine
he
if that-
didn't die
hey,
or
hey,
anything.
hey.
He was like, it was terrible, and then he was fine.
Imagine if that was completely orchestrated, right? There's
Hey.
going to be a pandemic soon, so let's get this Rogers movie out, right? Tom Hanks has to play it because everybody loves Tom Hanks. Then the pandemic hits, Tom Hanks gets sick, everybody starts looking up Tom Hanks. Oh, he had that movie. Why don't we watch that movie since we've got time?
And
Boom.
do you know when did the lockdowns happen? Do you guys remember?
March.
March, right?
Yeah, I think like
Do you guys
March
do
of
you guys know
2020.
when Bill Gates left the Microsoft board to start focusing more on philanthropy?
Was it March?
March 13th this year.
That was like, there's a huge exodus of all those CEOs. Earlier this year.
Hundreds of them.
March
Hundreds of them.
13th, dude. March 13th.
And,
effective-
You
and by the
guys,
way,
all a giant coincidence.
you know when they released that Mr. Rogers movie for like home consumption? You know, guys, like they wait until after like it's rented
DVD
in
and
the
rental and stuff. Yeah.
theater. Yeah, February 2020. It came out in November, a month after Event 201 by Bill Gates.
You guys,
Wow.
Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and other tech luminaries react to Biden's victory. How do you think they reacted?
Oh,
I'm
I'm
so
sure
happy.
they're terrible.
Jeff Bezos, who had a rocky relationship with President Donald Trump throughout his term, said Biden and Harris' victory signifies that.
Oh boy,
Okay.
here we go.
You know what's funny? If you have self-honesty about how you can be deceptive, you realize that if you wanted to, you can say whatever the fuck you needed to say.
Yeah, you can see it in other people because you're honest with yourself about it. Exactly.
So it's just so cute, right? So Jeff Bezos, what does he say? He says the Biden-Harris victory signifies that unity, empathy, and decency are not characteristics of a bygone era. We can still have that today. Is what I
Because
added.
he has so much
Weird.
money for his employees.
Decency. Yeah, of course, because that's what he stands for, right?
See, but this
Bill-
is
Bill
the thing.
Gates.
I'm glad you said that, Mitch, because it's like, what's the reality behind the scenes.
Yeah, look at the fucking reality. He is one
But
of
then
the
they're
best
saying all these
working
words, right?
people
Like,
decent.
remember Obama? It was all about hope, right? Now it's like decency is the word. We just want everything to be decent. Hold on.
Yeah.
What is the meaning of the word decent?
Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna look that up right now. It's third and TT.
If you came over to my house
Oh,
and I spent a fucking 3 hours making a meal for you
Oh.
guys, okay, and I was like, hey, did you guys like the food? And you were like, it was decent.
hold up. Because I do have to say,
Who made the food?
Black people use this word a little
I
differently.
know.
Okay.
I know.
All right. Okay.
That's why they're like, dude, yeah, it's gonna be decent. You're like,
decent.
no, dude,
Yo, that shit was
it's
decent.
gonna be decent. I'm sorry to say this, but I don't think that. Okay, I'm not gonna say it.
Okay,
Go ahead.
just first one that I see right away clicks, right?
Uh-huh.
Socially or conventionally correct, refined or virtuous.
uh-huh.
Just
Politically
like
correct.
political correctness, right?
And decency is behavior that conforms to accepted standards of morality and respectability.
Oh my, that is such fucking
Guys,
bullshit. Wow.
Bill Gates tweet, right?
Oh yeah, I saw this. I tweeted.
Congratulations
I posted it.
to President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris. Thank you to the election officials and campaign workers who worked tirelessly to ensure a record number of Americans could cast a ballot and have it counted during such a he put "and" challenging. Don't people hate Trump for not being able to tweet effectively in his grammar?
He didn't write this tweet, by the way.
Yeah,
True,
yeah.
yeah. During such a challenging time for our country. And then the next tweet says, I look forward to working with the new administration and leaders with both sides of Congress on getting the surging pandemic under control, engaging partners around the world on issues like poverty and climate change, and addressing issues of inequality and opportunity. You think they all got together when they're claiming victory and just started like jerking it, just being like, oh yeah.
It was more like this. But
Okay.
don't you think he had a vested interest in trying to get Trump out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does he have an equal say as you or the average person or anyone else?
No.
No.
No, their ability to move money around.
Like he can't he can influence things at the same level as everybody else, right? No.
No.
All he has to do is dump a bunch of money somewhere, and it's gonna make a huge impact on what's gonna happen.
Mhm. Exactly. Well, it's like what he's doing, what he's been doing. This should be very terrifying, everybody. For all you Biden fans out there, the fact that Bezos, Bill Gates, who's the other one who reacts in this article, Asif?
Bezos and Gates.
Oh, it's just Bezos and Gates.
And also Microsoft president Brad Smith.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Yeah.
That's just a subsidiary.
Low life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
Bill
you just
Gates.
have to look at it for yourself.
Have you guys seen that video of Kayvon the comedian being like, we have to elect a non-racist president. Who do I pick? And then he does like a comparison video.
No, I haven't seen that one.
It's 15 minutes long. It's so good. It's
15
so
minutes.
perfect.
I'm not gonna watch that.
But even the first 7 minutes, right? It's
That's
like
so
it's
long.
really good. And,
2 hours into our podcast.
It's so good because I honestly thought that Trump was racist. And I was like, man, like what a shit. Biden is actually fucking racist.
Bro, are you
He
just figuring this shit out?
I'm not just figuring it out, Jake. Chill, man. But I'm just
No, but I like what you're saying. It's cool because you're giving the other side of it of what
Like,
it's like.
to be clear, he was actually racist. He put up a bill when they were trying to pass legislation to have black kids being able to get buses to schools, the white schools, right? And I kept hearing this during the Democratic debate, and I just assumed that busing was some like political word that I didn't understand. So I had no idea what the fuck they're talking about. But they kept talking about busing, right? And it's so funny because Kamala Harris is shitting. I'm getting feedback from you, Mitch, your laptop, the speakers. But Kamala Harris is shitting on Biden. She's like, there was a little girl who was part of the second year of when that bill got passed. She was part of the second year of black kids who can go to school with the white kids. And she grew up to be a lawyer. And if you had your way, she wouldn't have been able to do that. And that little girl was me.
You did
And
that
now
perfectly.
she's fucking right. I nailed it, right?
You did that perfectly.
And now she's fucking bros, right? It was a debate. It was a debate. But seriously, it's like it's so funny because after the was it the first debate, right? He didn't, disavow white supremacy or whatever. He was like, sure, I'll do it. I'm willing to do that. But why aren't you talking about the Hunter Biden campaign? I remember watching that and being like, no, why didn't you just be like, I disavow it and then move on? Like, why wasn't he so clear and firm? And that video perfectly, 100% with no doubt explains to me exactly why he did what he did on that debate, because he literally did that over documented just in that one video. He's a comedian. How much time is he really putting into it? In that one video, he's like, I disavow the Ku Klux Klan. Like, Ku Klux Klan said they back you. He's like, I don't want their votes. I was like, damn, I would take the votes. He's like, I don't want their votes. I completely disavow. That's disgusting. Like, literally over 10 times. And then you have Biden being like, I don't want my kids growing up in a racial jungle. And then you also have Biden in a closed room, circled table dinner. You guys know what I'm talking about, kind of thing. Like, you got the Democrat Party. He's like, you guys aren't going to like me from this. And this is Biden, right? Joe Biden. Okay. He's like, you guys are not going to like me for this, but I wanted to build a wall. I want to build the biggest fence possible because we have all these drugs coming in from Mexico. They're coming in from corrupt Mexico. And I was like, wait, that's what they said Trump was here for. He's like, and you guys are really not going to like this from me, but I wanted to build the biggest fence possible because all the drugs are coming in, all the cocaine, the meth, it's coming in from corrupt Mexico. That's why we need to build a wall. Biden, no way you're ever going to hear about that. That was crazy. And he does it in a really fun way where he's like, well, sure enough, like, we both know that Trump said that neo-Nazis are very fine people. Let's play the clip. He's doing it like that, like coming from the other side. But it's just perfect because there was this significant point a while back, like months, probably last year, or I guess early this year, where I wasn't paying much attention to the politics, right? But it was like, I had that dirty taste in my mouth with Trump because I got hit with the media and that was it. Do you guys know how many subsequent impressions it takes to change the first impression?
So
It takes 7. It's pretty similar to, if somebody has to say no 7 times and then they get to a yes. But it's like the media got me with the first impression. And no matter how much I saw initially until I critically like thunk it, right? If I actually thought about it, I was like, okay, that's really good what he's doing. But, like, there's just something like, I don't really know about this guy. But when I realized that, I was like, oh my God, what's more important to me is that somebody says nice things to my ears rather than what they do. And that's when I was like, oh, Jesus, that's not what I want at all. Right? It's like, would you rather, just like Cameron said, would you rather the person who's quite crude, and crude just means like you don't add a bunch of bullshit into things. Like you're just saying what you mean. And sometimes it doesn't come out right, but then you go behind the scenes and you do the right thing. Or would you want somebody who sounds real nice and then goes behind your back and just fucks you, fucks your whole family? You know what I mean?
Or keeps you distracted while other people fuck your family.
Right, exactly. And that's why I'm so glad you brought that up, Drake, of like this, acceptance speech or whatever you want to call it, like the assuming the victory speech. It's really interesting of that idea of, because I feel that energy across the internet of like, ladies and gentlemen, we did it. We're finally out of the 4 years of darkness. We can all just like relax and go back to living the good life. It's like, uh-oh. That's when, if I was in that position, oh my God, like that is perfect. That is beautiful. It's like, we got the evil person out of power now. We don't have to worry about anything sketchy going on anymore. All right. See you guys later. I'll see you guys in 4 years for re-election. And I'm like, but they really did orchestrate it beautifully. And that video that you shared, Cameron, of that Russian guy or whoever talking about breaking down a society is crazy.
I'm gonna have to include that in the description.
It's super good. Yeah, it is worth it.
You're explaining it so well, Asif. and it's like, I hope people see this point. It's like, did you feel like we were doing evil shit the 8 years Obama was in office?
No.
Dude, you were just like, oh my God. Like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I didn't know anything that was going on.
But right. So the average person, do you think they felt like we were doing evil shit?
No, not at all.
Were we?
Yeah. 100%.
Absolutely.
It's like if we bomb a cafe during a wedding and kill a bunch of innocent people, is that okay?
It's not okay.
Well, if somebody's having a wedding at a cafe, I mean, no, I'm kidding. That's pretty
Do
fucked
you see what
up.
I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
is it okay? Like, why was it okay for Obama and Biden to do that?
I didn't know about it.
Right. Why didn't you know about it?
Nobody told us.
Right. The same people who didn't tell you that told you Trump is Hitler and racist.
Hmm.
The same people who didn't even see it was important to even let you know that Obama ordered drone strikes on innocent people.
Or that we didn't know about the peace deals that Trump did.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can you imagine, like, I just imagine somebody who's listening to this or anything, and like they're so excited about Biden, and then like maybe a week later they're listening to this and they start to look into it and they start to realize like what they voted for.
Yeah.
Like
I was
to
thinking about
really
that.
to have that cognitive dissonance of like, wait a second. Like, I never gave a shit about anything in this world except my own self-interest. And then I projected all of that evil in myself onto the person that all of the multinational corporations told me was the bad person in our world. And then to realize that you just supported the takedown of somebody who actually cared and actually was willing to put it on the line.
You know what's funny? There's this game called Secret Hitler. It's like a board game. It's really fun. But what it is like you're basically either the good people who you're passing legislation to make sure that a Hitler can't get into power. If you do that, then you win. And everybody's pretending to be good people. But then you also have like the low-key Nazis. And one of the Nazis are Hitler, right? But the other Nazis don't know who Hitler is. You don't know who the leader is going to be. But so everybody closes their eyes and it kind of gets appointed, right? I forget how. Like everybody draws a card and they flip it. You listen to how you flip it. But basically, throughout it, the Nazis are trying to like vote Hitler into power, and the other everybody's pretending to be just cool, like part of society, and they're trying to, vote a good person into power, right? And it's like the Hitler. If I was the Hitler, I have to like play good and all that stuff, and say take out that person and take out that person, blah blah blah, and get you to vote me into power, and that's a wrap. And on the other hand, it's like I also don't want the Nazis to kill me. I don't want my own people to kill me, because if the Nazis kill me, then they're fucked. And that moment in time of when it happened one time. I was playing it one night. We played for like 4 hours. It was so cool. It was like with rugby guys back in university. It was like 10 of us, right? And I was Hitler one time and I got voted into power, and then it's like game over. And that moment that the other team realizes that they voted Hitler into power in a fucking game, right, is hilarious. It's so funny because they all feel so dumb, right? And it's like, haha, we fucking got you, right?
Dude, bring that to the next gin event. That sounds like fun.
I know. I wish you guys were coming down when
When they're
everybody else
coming
is
down.
coming. That kind of reminds me of that game Among Us. A lot of kids are playing now,
Oh,
or
yeah?
younger people, anyways.
What is
Yeah,
it?
it's like
Among
I don't
Us.
actually. Well, actually, I played it one time. I downloaded it to see what it was.
Yeah.
And it's like you have a bunch of people running around and like several
Oh,
people
Among Us.
or
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
Among Us. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because I downloaded it and I was looking at it because somebody had mentioned it to me, And then Max saw me, and I wasn't like playing it very long. It was like literally just the first round. And then he was like watching me, and he was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's some game someone told me about. I'm looking at it." Because the when you look at it, it looks like it's just cute and harmless.
Yeah.
But then there's a certain part where like someone like murders somebody. It's like blood spraying everywhere.
And it's like,
And Max was like, "Can I play it?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to let you play it." And he's like, "Why not?" I'm like, "It's impulsing things that aren't best." He's like what? Right? And then I have to explain to him what it is. And he's like, "Well, why does the one person have to go sabotage everybody?" So I'm having to explain to him why this game exists, why people want to play it, what's the context of it, sabotage, why people would sabotage, why you'd want to stop that. I have to explain all that to him. I'm not saying that's a bad thing that I had to explain to him. He has to understand these things, but think about how many kids are playing that.
So many.
I know lots of people, like lots of teenagers and like younger kids are playing this game. It's very popular, right?
And there's tons of memes of it as well. Like at first I was seeing a bunch of memes for it and I had no idea what the context was. And then one of my clients who's like 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, she's like, "I want to play this game with you. Download this game." And I'm like, "Okay, sure, why not?" And I download the game and she's like really into it. Really into it. And I can just see how many people are being impulsed with, and it's like you said, it seems so benign. It seems so benign and so cute and just like, oh, okay.
See, why do people want to play it?
Because you get to be sneaky and
See,
get to
the people who are voting for Joe Biden, all this, they want that.
yeah.
They know what they're doing. At some level, they know what they're doing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm honest with myself. I know that whether it's Trump or Biden or whoever, you haven't changed anything. That doesn't mean, therefore, I have to go, well, Trump's a puppet like everybody else, like you see a lot of people do. They just say, oh, Trump's a puppet too. It's like, if you just think Trump's a puppet, you're not paying attention. You're just saying that because you don't want to take any responsibility. And it's easier for you to just say everyone's a puppet.
Yeah.
Where you just go on with your life and go on to your job and do everything you're doing and nothing changes. You actually have to do the hard work. And it was really cool what you said, Asif, about that first impression, because I had that first impression.
Yeah.
So it took
And
time for me
you
to be
walking
like,
through that was why I was like, okay.
it took me time to like, that year that he got elected, the first time, I watched almost every single rally he did for months on end to understand what was really going on. And at a certain point, I was like, this is really cool. Like, to see what he was doing. Like, he's a salesperson, he's selling, he's doing
Business
these
guy,
like,
right? Yeah.
yeah, it was like really cool from that perspective too. I started listening to what he was actually saying. And it's like, that really started to also support me to like, look at some of the things I was accepting. And what I find is that the people who, and there's definitely people who support him just because he's very persuasive. You know what I mean? Like, they don't necessarily understand everything. And I think here's the thing. You'll notice those people because they'll buy into all the Q, anon, and all that stuff.
Right. He's taking out all the rapists.
The trusting the plan.
Trust the plan.
Who would tell you to trust the plan? That's a religious point. That's a I believe in God thing.
Mm-hmm.
Trusting a plan is like, what do you mean trust it?
That's someone who doesn't want to.
Why would you? Let me ask you guys a question. Why would you trust the plan?
Because you don't want to take responsibility.
Okay, yes, but really, like, be real direct with it. It's like, let's say something happens in the news, and I'm like, whoa, this isn't good. Like, it looks like Trump's not going to win something, or something's going to happen. Why would they say just trust the plan? Why would they say that?
Because
so you don't do anything.
You don't have to feel bad about it. You can just like, it's okay. It's okay.
What were you going to do anyways?
Yeah.
So really, all it's about is feelings. So it's just manipulating people's feelings. And I mean,
you know what?
It could very well be a fucking intelligence operation on Trump's own party to get people to just like not lose support for him when they get brainwashed by the media to think he's bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not judging it. But the point within a person that looks at it and goes, therefore, I don't need to step up. And for those who haven't, Destiny Universe, the YouTube channel, uploaded a new series. It's actually from 2010 called Experience versus Principled Living or something like that.
Yeah.
and it's there's like 5 parts. I don't know if that's all 5 parts because I didn't listen to the last part yet. But I remember listening to it when it was uploaded the first time back in the beginning of 2010, and that was for me one of the most impactful interviews. It was the point where I experienced cognitive dissonance. About it wasn't definitely not the first interview or not the first audio from Destiny or anything that I listened to, but it was that point of I'm living still from the desire to experience something rather than principles. And that was when I really started to face that point within myself of like, how do I live from principle? That was in 2010. And it took years and years and years for me to really, at a certain point, look back and go, oh, I've been slowly but surely living more according to principle rather than my experience. Meaning I won't go and gravitate towards things just for the experience of it. That doesn't mean things have to be miserable and not fun. You can make things fun even if it's based in principle. You know what I mean? Like we're having fun on this podcast, even though we're not just going based on what other people say or whatever, what feels good or whatever. Sometimes it's very difficult to make that stand.
And
right?
you know, something was interesting that's like very clear, and just going back to the political points, is like people who are against the Republican side of things, they're not against the Republican side of the things. They hate an individual.
Yeah.
Like they hate utter disdain and contempt for a person, Trump, right? Which shows that you don't know. Like you only ever hate people you don't know, generally speaking. Because to know somebody is to recognize like how we're all the fucking same. Like, you know what I mean? Like people who might talk shit about us and then meet us in person and they're like, oh, well, you're like pretty cool. Like you're a normal person. Okay. You know? Versus the contrary is like, don't vote for Biden because this is what he's going to do. The Democratic Party, this is what they're for. This is what they're representing. This is what we're headed towards if we go that way. The other side is like, Trump is, this individual is the most evil thing that's ever touched American soil. And it's so weird. It's so weird because you do not see that anywhere else. And again, the double think being, but they're the tolerant ones. They're the loved ones. It's this side that is all about hate and all
you know, okay. Another cool point is like the same thing happened with Bernard, where you see people saying like he's this evil cult leader and they're doing all,
Right.
and I would say like, well, what is it that you don't like about him? It's like, well, he has an evil cult, and I'm like, well, why is it an evil cult? Because he uses persuasive techniques and things like that evil cults use. I'm like saying, so it's not the outcome of something that you can point to as to why it's bad. It's just because it seems like something else that you're defining as bad. Because I went to the Destiny farm.
Yeah.
I lived there for 6 months. It's the only reason why Katie and I are together. It's the only reason why we're married. It's the only reason why we have kids. It's the only reason why we started Techno Tutor. It's the only reason why my 4-year-old can read at like a fucking high school level. It's all because of all of that. It's the only reason I know you guys.
Yeah.
I went there and there was a person who stood for principles, and I saw, hey, I don't have an excuse. It's possible. Like this person can do it. It's the same thing when I look at Trump. He can stand up in the system and he can say, I'm gonna fucking do what's best. Even if I have to become the most hated person on the planet, I will do it. It doesn't matter because I want to fucking make an impact. You know? And the reason I brought up that interview earlier, the principle versus experience-based living, is because in there, I think it's either part 2 or part 3, at the beginning, Bernard says, one person can't change the system.
Yeah.
And it's interesting timing that they released that just recently, like re-released it, because it had been taken off YouTube many, many years ago when Destiny's channel was shut down. But it's back up now. They just put it back on there in the past like couple weeks. And he says, one person can't change the system. He said one person is like an anomaly. And that's what Trump is. He's an anomaly. Like he wasn't supposed to win the first time. That's why I'm not going to feel bad either way, because I'm not going to allow my emotions to determine what I do, because whether he's the president or not, we still have a mission. We still have to educate the planet.
Yeah.
Because even if Trump does win, let me ask you guys a question. Let's say Trump does win. What do you think the next 4 years are going to look like in the media?
Oh,
Yeah, even more attacking.
You think suddenly if people have this belief that if he's elected again, if he does get into office, you know, if let's say his lawsuits are successful and everything, like he's just going to declassify everything and do all that. No, he's still going to have a government with a bunch of fucking people who have no principles. He's still
We're
going to
gonna
deal
try
with
to
the
impeach
media.
him every time.
It's not going to be any
away.
easier. It's just going to be
Yeah.
difficult, but at least you know he's not going to just give up on the whole concept of America, which is the only place that values individual sovereignty.
Yeah.
That's the key here. Right? Because once that is gone, and what did Kamala say? Think about it. The same approach that they want to take with racial, it's not even racial equity. It's just, what do you call it? It's just social justice, I guess.
Mhm.
They want to apply that to America and the world. So are they going to take China and give China the resources of America so that they can be equal to us? Are they going to take Venezuela and give them the resources we have so that they can be equal? What's the only option? Is to take us down.
Mm.
It's a lie. You see what I mean? It's like the wolf saying, "I'm going to give everybody equal amounts." So in other words, but they look at their pile and they're like, "Well, but also, by the way, I believe in lack, and we only have one steak, so I'm gonna have to divvy it up amongst everybody. So none of you get anything."
Mhm.
You know what I mean? The wolf analogy didn't make sense, but you see my point, right?
And so where I see self-perfected fitting into this is it's on all of us who can hear this message to step the fuck up and take responsibility and
Oh,
go to
sorry,
the-
Mitch. That was the point I wanted to say about that audio from Bernard. Is he says that if you listen to it after he says one person can't change the system, he says every person on the planet needs to become an anomaly in the system.
Yes.
And that is the key. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. This isn't about people following something. It doesn't change anything if I become amazing. I'm not interested in becoming Trump where everyone worships me and everyone hates me. That all of that is irrelevant. People have to change. And so the problem is we're in for a rude awakening where the people on the left, the people on the right, let's say Trump doesn't get into office. You know what they're going to realize? There's no plan. Let's say he does get into office. He's not going to do the stuff that they're thinking he's going to do. He's going to keep doing what he can do, but it's not going to be, because 4 years later after that, they're still going to have to deal with another election. Do you see what I mean? So we have to change. We have to all be willing to stand up. And initially, it's a few people. Because the difference of what we're going to do is when we go into political office, we're going to be able to replace the entire government with people who have principles, not just in it for their own self-interest. Because if there's even, it's not like, oh, if one person fucks up, then everything falls. But I'm saying, think about it. If you have a government and a bunch of people are in there for self-interest, somebody made a really cool point. They said the problem with Trump is he didn't even care about the lobbyists. He just kicked them out. He's like, fuck off. But then everybody around him suddenly became a lobbyist.
Yeah.
Because everyone just went to the people around him to try and get in their thing.
Yeah.
So it's like they targeted all the people around him, which is why you see it's like he's kind of on his own to a certain degree. We have to support ourselves and each other to become so strong within the principles that nobody can fuck with us, because you don't care about. It's interesting, isn't it? It's like everything's in reverse. Everyone is living in this world like it doesn't matter because they're looking for the afterlife. But the ironic thing is their whole focus is on just getting happiness here.
Mm,
Isn't that funny?
that is. That's a great point.
And what I'm saying is we need to live like happiness now doesn't matter, so that we can really be here and do what matters. So that the happiness that we put into this world is eternal. It's like real. It actually is something that really matters. Not just we got to experience it real quick and then when we die, it's gone. That's not real. That's what allows you to be manipulated. Whether you support Trump or whether you support Biden, it doesn't matter if you don't change that.
That's really
You
good.
guys want to add to it?
That's super good. Like, you could say that again, seriously, because
Yeah, can you just repeat that the last 5 minutes actually?
Let me rewind. But it's true. Isn't this the essence of what we're saying?
yeah, but hang on. But seriously, let's break that down. You're saying, okay, most people look at it as there's this afterlife that I got to get to, and it doesn't matter what I do here. As long as I trust and feel good and
Yeah, but what they're doing is they're using it as a justification that all will be forgiven when I die.
yeah, wow.
You see, that's really what it is. They're acting like, oh, it's like I'm gonna have my reward there.
Yeah.
So it's like but I'm still gonna struggle and fight and try to be happy here and basically just participate in energy, which means I'm gonna give my consent to this money system as it is and not challenge that at all. And then I'll get my reward in heaven. But I'm actually trying to get my reward now.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that when I die, everything will be forgotten and I'll be okay, which is kind of like what Biden and them are doing right now for half the country. They're saying, hey, we know we were fucking not unifying. We were totally calling you Nazis and everything this whole time, but can you just forgive us now and everything will be good?
Wow.
Well, really what they want is everyone to go back to sleep so the corporations can have final ultimate power. I'm not going to let that happen.
Right.
You know why? How am I not going to let that happen? I'm going to help educate this planet so people can wake up. And it's not like you can just listen to what I'm saying and suddenly everything's going to change. It's not based on me. It's about giving you the tools. Self-perfected. We're showing you all the tools that you need to take responsibility for yourself. Life is better that way. You actually get all the things that you want that you can't get now, that you think you're going to get. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the thing. When you do this, what we're suggesting, you're going to get everything you want, plus you're actually going to stand for something real. Mitch, do you want to add something?
Yeah. So I have to jump on a call right after this. However, if you've been following and listening to this podcast and joining us in the Self-Perfected group or not, what else are you waiting for? Like, if you need some sort of permission slip, consider this your permission slip to step the fuck up and join us, because like we're all saying, we all need to become that anomaly within the system, within our communities, within our families, and then within the world, so that we can usher in this new era, because no one's here to fucking save you. Not me, not Cameron, not Drake, not Esther, not Jessica, nobody except us together, walking together and doing this, as a team. And there's a really cool quote by Heraclitus, and it's basically that the dreamers, those who are asleep, all think that they're in their own little dream. But those who are awake realize we're all in the same fucking world. We're all actually here. My actions affect your guys' reality and vice versa. So stop fucking sleeping. Stop dreaming. Wake up and actually join us. And if you're in the Self-Perfected group, share it with people. Okay? It's not just going to be us out in front leading the charge. I mean, we will, and we will keep doing that, but come up alongside us and actually take this on for yourself, because this is bigger than any of us.
Yeah, the whole point of what we're doing is to get other people to step up equally. That's the whole point. It's not to just be leaders.
Exactly. So I'm going to hop off, but keep going, guys.
All right. See you, Mitch.
See you later, Mitch.
Hey, dude.
I know one thing that I had to walk through many years ago, and more and more over time, to be 100% in it, was listening to Cameron's Facebook Lives, to be honest, right? Where that was the main connection, right? Because we didn't have Self-Perfected, we didn't have even Self Leaders Club and all that stuff. And inside of myself, feeling like, whoa, because I'm listening to this, because I'm accepting these ideas, I'm on the good side of history. I'm on the good team. I'm giving my support. But that doesn't fucking mean anything. And one thing that us on the Self-Perfected podcast, we can develop more of is really giving examples of what we mean if something's evil or if something's principled, or like if you're just moving based off energy. And that's a great example of being evil. If you're listening to this and you think that you're on the winning side, the good side, the doing the right thing, the doing what's best, the living principally, because you're listening to this, you're not. This is the bridge to get you to take action. If you should learn anything from Trump's presidency, is that you can basically do whatever the fuck you want if you get the support, right? If you become a master communicator. That's a great thing. It's a very, very, very powerful thing, because that's when we started seeing people like, for example, Andrew Yang popping up and having pretty good success, being the first time just an entrepreneur running, right? Now, considering that point, realize that the only way ever to make a difference is exactly what John Taylor Gatto, one of the greatest educators of his time, of all time, he says the real goal, the goal of real education is not to deliver facts, but to guide students or individuals to take responsibility for their lives. So if there's any part of you that feels any kind of way about the election, about Joe Biden, about Trump, about anything, the only solution to those feelings is to do something yourself. Because, I mean, Bernard says it well. He's like, the chances of us doing it in totality is very, very fucking slim. But that's not what we care about. Like, and give perspective if you see that what I'm saying can be interpreted in stupid ways. But what I'm saying is that it's like, it doesn't matter if the time frame is an issue for you of like, how are we going to make the world best for all in this amount of time, all that stuff. Like, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like,
just fear, and it's just self-interest, because it's like, okay,
Right.
so
I
then
wanna
what? Then
experience.
now you got the excuse to just not worry about it and just live for your own self-interest. Like, that's the exact attitude that's brought us here in the first place, that we've all been doing our whole lives in existence until this point.
now, what would you say?
Maybe just changing it now, even if you don't get to see the end result, is just all you need to do.
Right, exactly. And that will give you ultimate fulfillment. Now, what would you say to people who are like, how are you gonna stand up? Like, how are you gonna change the system? How are you gonna go into politics? You know how corrupt politics is? How are you gonna go into politics and actually make a difference? You know what? You just because you're president doesn't mean anything. You got to do much more than that. The game's corrupt. What would you say to
Well,
them?
that's what's so great about watching Trump, is that's the number one. I already knew this, but seeing it in real time,
Right.
I got to remove all of my points of hope. Because, and also my savior complex, any of those aspects of myself that people would have it within them, because you get to see like how difficult it is if you try to do it on your own. He's amazing. Like, he really genuinely is, even if you don't like him. It's funny because people, this guy, Chink, whatever the fuck his last name is,
Jigbugu?
Yogurt, from Young Turks.
Oh, never mind.
He was like upset at the Democratic Party. He's like, how you let this idiot, come so
video
close
was
to beating
hilarious.
us? And it's like, yeah. So what does that mean if you let an idiot beat you?
Yeah, that means you're an idiot.
Like, maybe
That
he's
means
not
you're
an
dumber than
idiot.
an
Maybe
idiot.
none of these people are idiots.
Yeah.
That means
Maybe you're
dumber
playing
than-
at a whole nother level, and maybe being an idiot is just part of the act. And it's honestly not even part of the act, because nobody thought Trump was an idiot until he ran for president.
Right.
Name one person who their big complaint about Trump was that he was an idiot.
No.
They might have said he was an asshole or something,
Yeah.
But to go back to your question, it's like, there's a certain point within myself where it's like, I don't have what it takes to be president. I'm not like Trump. And it's like, it doesn't matter. And so first of all, I have to remove the fear of I'm not like that, because, okay, well, what are the limitations?
Mm-hmm.
If you can identify what you're not like, then why can't you just become that?
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? And then also look at the parts that aren't effective, and then do better than that. But also, he's just one person. And so my purpose right now is not to go be the president. It's to support myself, my family, other people, to find more people and support more people, so that we stand within principle. It's not about each person being amazing, because there may be limitations to how kind of far we can get within our programming, just in the amount of time you have left. Meaning, like, how great of a speaker can I become?
Mhm.
Can I be as good as Trump? Can I be as good as Obama? Can I be as good as Winston Churchill? I have no idea, like, on the scale, how good I can become. But what does it matter how good I can become? What matters is the effect that you have, not the perception. Do you see what I mean? And so what matters more is the effect. how many people has Trump supported to change themselves? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No, no.
Probably none. I'm not faulting him for that.
Hmm.
He's in the system doing a specific point that he's there to do, that he chose to do. But what I'm saying is, if you can support another person to change fundamentally from take to what can I give? How can this world give equally? How can we actually change this world? And everyone was considering that. And that was the starting point of why we're here for each person individually. That's more important. So anybody who's like, well, I could never go and be in politics and do all these amazing things, you don't actually have to be that good. That's not even the point. It's just like, I mean, do you ever see Maxine Waters talk? Is she that good?
No.
I guess some people think she's good. I don't know. But what I'm saying is it's about standing within a principle, not giving up. You see? So those are the things that I'm holding myself to. The way you get better at communicating is just by doing it a bunch. You know what I mean? How can I sit down and go, okay, how can I speak like Trump? Okay, I can watch him. I can observe his videos, which I already do. But then how do you know if you're actually like that?
You go
You have to
speak.
Go do it.
You go
listen
speak.
to yourself,
You see what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know if you can actually support someone to change unless you just try to do it? Try to
Uh-huh.
persuade them. You try to you support them to see how to use the tools, whatever it is. And it's like we can't individually support people to change. We have our own self to deal with. You know what I mean? You have to take the tools on yourself and apply them and see how far you can go. But don't count yourself out like, oh, well, I could never see myself in politics. It's like, what is politics? Politics is just standing for something and speaking about it.
Yeah.
And if you can't see yourself doing that, like just standing and speaking about something, what is it you can see yourself doing?
Okay.
You know, most people, what is it that we want to do? We just want to feel good, I guess.
But
That's it.
You know what I realized in using these tools and when you unconsciously realize that you can change the things that you might be jealous of in another person, the things that you might idolize another person for, you realize that you can integrate that into yourself, right? The idea of being the living word, like, what does that mean? It means that everything that you see and witness, you can break it down into words like a computer. And if you break it down for yourself, you'll be able to interpret that and then live it.
There's a little more to that as well. It's like being able to take from a book or a story or information that you're seeing that's like supposed to be in the past or whatever, and being able to transpose that into like what you're doing right now, what you're accepting and allowing in your life right now, and how that actually relates to you.
You guys
Yeah.
want to hear another even more specific point within that?
Go.
Y'all listen to the principle versus experience-based living, right?
I'm like
Not all of
on
it.
3 right
Listening
now.
to it, right? Yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
I know they just uploaded. There's a point where in there where Bernard says that humans are essentially useless until they're programmed.
Huh.
So go listen for it when you hear it, when you listen to it later.
Mhm.
But Daryl's like interviewing Bernard in that audio, and then he kind of asks him, like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, when a child is born, they can't do anything until they're programmed with words.
Right.
So that's what you are. You're literally a word or a set of words. That's all you can do.
That's a
If
cool
you
way to
weren't
put
programmed
that.
with words, there's not much you could do.
Yeah.
You know what?
You know,
Just
like a horse, when a horse is born, within a few minutes or whatever it is, it's like up walking around doing it. But how
Yeah.
much can a horse do?
It can do horse stuff. That's it.
It's just horse stuff. Yeah, it's like it's not going to fucking build a skyscraper,
Right.
right? That means we have more responsibility to take care of the horse, by the way, not it's inferior to us.
Right.
But it also doesn't try to dominate and like build civilizations to enslave people either.
Yeah.
It doesn't have
Right.
the same mind we have, right?
Right.
But my point is, it's like, and I take this really seriously with our children. I'll give you another quick example. I think I gave a pretty good example last time too. We were listening to a song on Spotify, and it was "She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain." You guys know that song? And
No,
Max,
no, wait. What song? Can you sing it for me?
she'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. And there's in this one version, it goes, "She'll be bringing chicken and dumplings when she comes." And I don't know why that's in there. Is that in the original? I have no idea.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I like it.
And it was interesting because we've been listening to several different versions, and in that one they just happened to say that. And I was observing Max because they were like dancing to it, and I was observing Max, and when it came on and they said that part, he was like that. You know, as people listening, it's like he was kind of like he was looking like he was uncomfortable. I'll just put it that way. You guys can see what I'm doing, but he was like, have you ever seen a kid? I don't know how much exposure you've had to like little kids, but like if they're uncomfortable, they'll be like, "Do you ever see this?"
Yeah.
It's like they'll smile, but it's like it's not a happy. It's more like a
Yes.
there's nothing in the eyes. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
so he was doing something kind of like that, but I'm aware of it, so it's more of like a different expression, but it's the same kind of thing. But anyways, and I kind of just observed it, but I didn't really know what it was. And then when we were listening to it again later, I saw him do it again, like he was reacting to the word chicken and dumplings. And I was like, "Hey Max, are you okay?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Are you uncomfortable when they talk about chicken and dumplings?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Why?" And he was like, I don't know. And I said, "Do you know what chicken and dumplings are?" And he was like, "No." And I was like, "Oh." And I was like, "Do you want to learn about it?" And he was like, "Yeah." And his expression started to change. And I was like, "Do you want to learn what it is?" He's like, "Yeah." And and then I think when I asked him about it, he was like, why are they saying that? Right. So I was like, "Do you want to learn about it?" He's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, well, let's do some Technotutor." So we got Technotutor out. I put in chicken, which he already knows that word, but I put it in anyways. I put in dumplings, and I put chicken and dumplings. We did that on Technotutor. And then I said, "Why don't we look up chicken and dumplings and see what it is?"
Yeah.
And so we looked it up on Google, and I knew what it was, but I looked it up and I explained to him what it was. Like we looked at the definition, we looked at the definition of dumplings in Technotutor, right? And I just explained to him what chicken and dumplings were, And I was like, he was like, "That looks pretty good." Because we were looking at all these pictures of it. He's like, "That looks really good." And I'm like, "Yeah, it does. Like, maybe we should ask Katie to make it. I bet she can make it." Right.
Yeah.
So then later in the day, I was asking Katie, I was like, "Hey, Max, did you talk to Katie about chicken and dumplings?" She's like, "Yeah, he was telling me about that." And I was like, "What's a dumpling, Max?" I was like, "What is it?" He goes, "Well, it's something good to eat." And I go, "But what is a dumpling?" And he goes, "Oh, it's a ball of dough." I was like, "Yeah, that's right." So he was like, "Fine." Now I'm sharing that story because I have no idea really why there was a reaction to that word.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I can guess, I can surmise like within myself, like the word dumpling, dump. I don't know. Like why would he have those associations? Maybe it's something he got from me. Maybe I had a memory of childhood, something associated with chicken and dumplings that he downloaded from me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just saw there was something going on there. And then we did the Technotutor and then we talked about it and he integrated what it actually is. And now we're like, "Yeah, let's have chicken and dumplings sometime. It's cool." Like he's not having that reaction.
Yeah.
Like it sounds maybe
Trivial.
probably if someone's listening to this podcast, there's enough examples we've given where you can see how that, if you're probably just hearing that's your first exposure to like what we're talking about technology, you're probably like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? Right.
Yeah.
But it's significant. It's like there's so many little things that as a child you integrate within a point of confusion or awkwardness or embarrassment or some kind of feeling that's not quite what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it becomes something later. and it was just really cool because I pick up on those points when I can, obviously. And we-
Katie's there, of course, to
yeah, as well. I mean, she's mostly around all the time.
Yeah.
But it's like we take that point seriously because it's not directing all those little points. And obviously there's ones that are more obvious, like the word hate or racism, or there's like so many obvious words that clearly if you don't direct those. But the reason I brought up was in the context of the living word, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like once we integrated the words and he understood it, it no longer became a problem.
Yeah.
It was purely a problem because it was words that he was hearing that didn't make sense. At the most obvious basic level, that's what I can say.
Yeah.
Didn't make sense, and therefore it was like something's confusing and weird. What were you gonna say?
I thought of this when Drake was, or was it when you brought up about the horses? Because I know you guys are nerds, right? So, in terms of math, right? And I'm not even that good in math, but what I thought of when you guys said it's a set of words, I thought of like the x value, like a function is defined at specific parts on a graph where it's attributed a value, right? And at certain parts on that, like at certain x values or coordinates, it's undefined. And the function just is not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how we experience. It's like if we're the function, if we are defined at x equals 1, x equals 2, x equals 3, but not at x equals 4, that's what we'll experience. We'll experience like, I can't do that.
Yeah, it's like if you don't have the input in there associated with the
Exactly.
output, you're not going to get something out. It's just going to be confusing.
Exactly. And that kind of clicked for me when you're talking about a set, right? And it just makes so much sense as to why we feel that little like corrupted file inside of us, right? And I could imagine that experience of what he was expecting to hear when he was listening to that song, and then it's something different, and it's kind of like jarring. And I don't know all the details of it, right? But it's like, whoa, that's not what I was expecting. Like we were having so much fun to this, and now you've changed it.
Something's not
exactly.
clicking, yeah.
Like this is not the same thing, and I don't know what's happening.
And all it is perhaps is an experience of something wasn't expected, and then that feeling is associated with those words.
Mm-hmm.
And you think it's the words making you feel that way, but it's really just like, what is that person doing? What is that talking about? Like what?
Exactly.
You see?
And you say we're the fucking nerds. That's hilarious. You brought up all this math stuff.
But what
I was gonna say
what I want to add.
I was gonna say
I want to add to that though.
I was worried about getting it wrong, to be honest.
What I want to add to that is, if you think about yourself, like who you are, the way you behave, the way you act, all the choices you are going to make, like you could, let's say, given a choice, I could predict what choice you would make based on who you are. Meaning, I'm not saying like I have so much insight, like I know. I'm just saying, if I could see the totality of you, I could predict your decisions, right? Pretty easily. All of that is contained in your vocabulary. And you got your vocabulary from who?
Parents, environment.
Your parents.
Environment.
That's why you're like them. And then the DNA is just more vocabulary, it's just more information. It's all just information that's inside of you. So when we say like you're a living word, it's like everything about you is contained in your basic DNA, which controls how your body is structured and so forth. But then beyond that, purely the words that you know. Because you and I both know if you take a child born to really smart parents and then you put him like in the ghetto. You guys remember that Asian black girl?
Yeah. I remember.
The Korean girl who
That's
grew up
right.
in the South, and she's like basically black
Yeah.
culture-wise.
Yeah.
Right? She's not Asian.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like she identifies as being black.
Right.
It's her
No.
culture.
Like that, there's going to be certain limitations, but it's not even worth talking about, because if you're listening to this and you don't have the full context, then you're going to use it as some kind of justification as to why you don't have to change. But the real truth is that idea of I can't do that right now is not a valid reason as to why you shouldn't develop yourself. It's like, I was talking to somebody and they realized that one of the staples in their personality that they got from their father was anger. It's a really like quick thing for them to go into is anger. and that person is developing a lot more responsibility. They've been using Technotutor for some time and they want to share that more. And he's like, man, I've been thinking about our old friend, this person, and I know their life is fucked up and I wanted to reach out to them. And he's like, I wanted your perspective on, how I should approach it and things like that. And I was like, just reach out to rekindle, start talking again. But he's like, but I just hate how he's going to like try to play this power game, all this stuff. I was like, you realize that you're going to have to develop the expression of patience, of understanding. And he understood now. A year ago, I already tried to discuss this with him, right? Of like, dude, like you have like anger problems, right? Didn't care. He's like, I know. This is who I am. Like, you're just forced, right? But the point is, now he realizes that's something that you can develop, right? Just because your function isn't defined at this coordinate doesn't mean it's like, oh, it's not for me. Like, that's not in my cards.
But think about it, it means you don't have definitions for certain things.
Exactly. That's it.
You just have to learn these things.
Mhm.
And, we were talking, remember we kind of talked in the very beginning or relatively about like the black girl or the black kid who sees a black president and then therefore says, I can be president.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to go back to that for a second because I was looking at a couple points. Can they actually become president just because they see somebody else that looks like them as president?
No. And also Asif did bring up a really great point that is like, if you were looking for somebody else to do it before you could do it, to show that you could do it, you were never going to do it because, and I know I just said like a whole bunch of you can and can't do it, right? But how did the first person get there? Because they didn't.
How did Obama get in
Well,
there?
but hold on,
Right.
but not even that. Let's just, okay, I agree. But what I was going to get at is, what's the real reason a person can't, like, if I'm talking to you, not you two, but just the person listening to this, and I'm saying you need to stand up and join us and go into politics and become rich and be a distributor and get people Technotutor and, go and be powerful in this world and impactful and everything. And you're like, well, I mean, I can't do all that.
Mhm.
Is it because you don't see someone who looks like you doing it? That's why you think you can't do it?
Right.
No, that's not.
Why is it that you think you can't do it?
Because you have low self-esteem.
Yes. Because you don't have the vocabulary of it, meaning you don't just go into it and know exactly what to do already.
Mm.
And you have low self-esteem. You don't believe in yourself. You don't trust yourself. You don't realize like, well, I mean, I literally know I can't do it right now, but I mean, doesn't mean I can't start taking the steps to eventually get there.
Like
You know,
why
it takes
wouldn't
10
you be
years.
able to learn it? Right?
Yeah, like
that's what
okay,
Drake
I'm not
is
saying you
saying
go run for
today.
office today unless you
Uh-huh.
can, but maybe 10 years from now.
That's
prepare
what we
yourself.
mean with low self-esteem. Is like you're like too afraid to fail, so that you'll never actually try to learn it.
Right. So then when we have these people over here going, look, now my daughter feels like she can do anything because finally we have a black woman as vice president. It's like,
It just shows she had.
was
low
that the
self-esteem.
only reason that she didn't think she could be president?
No.
Because even if it was one of the reasons, it's not the main reason.
That's completely true.
Why shouldn't you be telling your child, you can do anything you want if you develop the vocabulary, even if you don't see anybody who looks like you? That's not what makes you able to do things, is how you look.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't have
Yeah, that's
a
crazy.
electrical engineer who works at IBM who looks exactly like me, so I don't know if I can do it. It's like, what kind of specificity do you need in the example? You should, and if it's, well, you don't see a woman who's the president. It's like, fuck. I mean, there was a black guy as president. Is that not good enough?
Yeah.
Now it has to be a black woman as well. Okay, but what about all the Native American people?
Right. Right.
What
We're gonna
about
do
the
native.
people who are like
We need a paraplegic.
Zulu tribe versus Toza, or something like that? It's like, what
Right.
fuck? Like, how specific do you need to get
Yeah.
for it to be reflective of you? And then what happens if you're a transgender, non-binary Muslim who is handicapped? Like, do you need to have someone exactly like that to become president?
Yes.
Like, do you understand? No offense, but you're going to be dead by the time we get to that president. And if even if yours comes up next, what about all the other 10,000 different types of identifications people have? And I'm not being facetious. People identify in very specific ways. Like, I'm a Nebraska Cornhuskers fan, and Also, I like to eat at PF Chang's on the weekends, and I like to watch Stranger Things. And I need a president who does all those things before I can feel like I'm president. It's like, how fucking specific does it need to be?
Right. It's like, what did you just program your child to believe is important? Their skin color. What did you
Yeah,
just
it's
program
your fault as
child
the
for?
parent if your child thinks they can't become president because
That's
there's not
really
a
fucking
half Jamaican American / Indian American woman whose mother's from Canada who was a cancer doctor and who became a district attorney and then was a senator. The fact that they're now vice president, it's your fault as a parent because you're the one who's taught your child and has allowed them to believe that that's relevant.
Yeah. And
Because
really think about it. If you really
who did Kamala Harris have to look up to to make it possible for her in that moment? Like, does it make logical sense?
No.
like if your excuse
And actually, hold on,
is-
sorry, hold on, one more second.
Okay, go. Finish it. Yeah, for sure.
Who put Kamala Harris there?
Biden, white man,
DNC.
Well,
the white
we
man.
voted, right? We voted.
Yeah.
Right.
So isn't it really just saying you need everyone else's permission to say it's
Wait.
your time to shine?
Wait. What?
We
For-
voted, right?
For vice president? Is that how it works?
Well, she's on the ticket. But all my point is
Okay, no, I get you.
ostensibly we voted for her as well if we're voting for him.
Right.
So I'm saying isn't it like you're saying you have to wait till enough people say it's okay for a person like you to be in that position before you have permission to now do it as well?
Yeah.
How many more? And also, is self-esteem that's built in that way transferable? If I am a black child and I see that there's a black president and I say, well, that means I can do anything, that automatically equals I have the self-esteem and ability to now go do this other thing I want because I don't really care about being president.
No.
Yeah.
So does it transfer?
No.
It doesn't. I'm not trying to be facetious. Like, it doesn't
true.
actually transfer like
It does give it might give you a good feeling, right?
for example, like Michael Jackson, right? Amazing dancer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was watching videos of Fred Astaire. You ever seen
Yeah.
Fred Astaire dance?
Yeah.
Fucking amazing. I'm not saying he's the same as Michael Jackson, a different time period, but he's amazing.
Right.
That doesn't make me feel confident that I can dance like that. Because like, oh, well, it's just only black people can dance really well. And then I watch Fred Astaire and I'm like, well, I guess I don't have an excuse. I'm not suddenly like, you know what? I can do it.
But actually,
If I want to be able to
that's a
dance,
great-
I just need to develop the vocabulary and the physical ability to do it.
That's a great point right there, though. I don't have an excuse. That's really like the real problem is you've made all these excuses. You have low self-esteem and then you've given yourself all these excuses. That's like taking away your excuses. And so then they think that by taking away an excuse means that now you can do it. That's not true.
Right.
See, but what did Kanye say about slavery? About talking about it for 300 years?
It's a choice.
He said it, yeah. Right. That sounds like an excuse, is the way I look at it.
Because
Yeah.
don't people say, like, and KT says this, I think in your research, he's like, but you don't know you don't know my wife, like she's a bitch, or you don't know my husband, he's an asshole. As in, you'll still come up with an excuse of, oh my God, I just saw a black woman vice president. But if that was your excuse as to why you weren't doing it, you'll find another excuse.
Right.
No doubt.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Your starting point was
100%.
there's some reason I can't do it. And it's like,
Yeah.
but here's the problem. Here's the real major problem. Just because there was a black guy who was president doesn't mean any black person can be president.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not how things work.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not how reality works. Obama was able to be president because he was really skilled at speaking. He's a smart guy. There's a lot of qualities he has that allowed him to be there. It had nothing to do with him being black. Just because you're black and he's black doesn't mean that you can do it.
Yeah.
You didn't go to Columbia.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and what's funny is then if we say, look, because we've talked about these reading research books, right?
Yeah.
It says, stop talking about a literacy deficit in the minority communities. It's a cultural difference. It's racist and it empowers and emboldens racists if you call it a literacy deficit. It's like saying it's not a part of black culture. I mean, I'm not saying this is what they're saying. It's not a part of black culture to place value on being literate.
Yeah.
So by trying to say that we need to measure all the black population and make sure that they're at the same standards as the white kids is like saying that's like you're trying to impose your culture on theirs.
Right.
It's like, okay, but aren't you
Oh, wait,
saying
wait,
that?
wait, wait. Aren't we? Don't we have a rape culture in America? So, if you're trying to get away, if you're trying to suppress rape culture, you're fucking evil.
You're racist.
Well, that's funny, but that's really the argument I'm making, not about rape, obviously, but it's like, well,
Like, when did culture
if,
become?
hold on.
Fucking,
If you can't apply that standard here,
Hmm.
then how can you go over here and say that SAT is racist because it's biased against certain
minority groups,
races or whatever?
Right.
It's like, okay, so what? That would be my argument if you're going to accept this one. So what? It's white culture and Asian culture to go to college and be smart. Like, what's your point? So what? You guys don't value that.
There you
Okay.
go.
That's the fucking argument that you're making.
Yeah.
And the problem I have with it is if you argue, and this I'm saying, anybody who doesn't believe me, go look at the handbooks of early literacy research and the handbooks of reading research, the later editions, where it's like all the fucking critical race theory basically creeping in there.
Right, right.
The argument is made that we shouldn't even focus on a deficit in literacy in these communities. There's other ways to be literate. You have to also include other cultural things. Like if I express myself, I'm kind of being a little bit
Facetious.
not facetious, yes, but also just kind of like exaggerating, caricature. It's like Black people like to express themselves through beatboxing or fucking casual, back and forth chit chat or some shit. I don't know. I'm just making something up. They don't do it through writing essays.
Right.
Right.
So we need to now include that as part of the curriculum standards of how we measure. You see what I'm trying to say? It's like we need to adjust, but then also at the same time, the SAT is racist. So we need to get rid of that too. But then what about, why are we placing value on everybody going to college then?
Yeah.
It doesn't. And here's the thing I was looking at too, because we were talking about Biden stuff earlier. What did they do in the debate? Remember the first debate? Trump walked all over him, right? And what did they do after that?
Mute the mics.
Mute the mics. Yes. Why would they do that?
To stop Trump from walking all over Biden.
Like clearly to get rid of his competitive advantage.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
They leveled the playing field.
Oh.
Did Biden have to become better, or did they take Trump down?
They took Trump down.
So when they're talking about not equality, equity, everyone gets the resources they need. You just saw in real time an actual living example of what they would really do in order to level the playing field.
Right.
They wouldn't do something to support Biden. They did something to hurt Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And then they used the whole, you notice that what did they use to do it? Did they say it was to take Trump's advantage away? Is that what they justified it with?
No.
What did they say?
I was trying to remember that. As
civil or something like that.
Right. It was about decorum, wasn't
the
it?
point of the debate is to debate.
It was about decorum. It was actually about political correctness.
Yeah.
It was actually about, that's not the way the debate should feel and appear. That's not proper standards of a debate. It should be, so we're going to have to mute your mic because you're not abiding by the rules. We're not trying to take your advantage of way.
Yeah.
Do you see?
You're not Joe Biden by the rules.
So you're getting to see in this context, I think really this should be like a clip, a bonus clip. Because seriously, because what I'm explaining is how you're seeing a real-time example of how these kind of starting point will be applied to create equitable outcomes.
Yeah.
Because they wanted the outcome where everybody spoke the exact amount of time. So how did they do that? By Biden getting better and just being like, shut up, stop talking. I'm talking now.
No.
You can talk in a minute. I'm going to finish. Okay. And then when Trump would talk, he could interrupt Trump. Why couldn't he just interrupt back? Well, America doesn't want to see that.
Come on, man. That's Biden's go-to.
And then
line.
the problem was you had a lot of people go, oh, that was such a shit show. That's such a shit show, huh? This is a shit show.
Yeah.
It's
they
like,
didn't
okay,
even
well, you
really
got what you
talk
wanted.
about policy.
And then so what? You're gonna give Biden 2 minutes to talk about the veins bulging and the tiki torches waving, and that's not debate.
You know what he
that's
said?
not real. Huh?
Very fine people on both sides.
He said there were very fine people on both sides.
And he didn't denounce the KKK and the neo-Nazis and the white
for the
South.
50th time.
Yeah, we were looking for 51. God damn.
It's insane. And I'm just saying you have to really be able to process things to be able to pick up on it. You don't have to be gifted, you just have to be able to process things. And so if you just stick with how I feel about it, that's so easy to manipulate. That's like with what we do. I'm not interested, especially when it comes to distributors, interested in working with somebody who's totally delusional about what we're doing.
Hmm.
If they think it's just you download, you have TechnoTutor and then you just
Good luck.
now you're good.
Yeah.
Like it's like, no, you got to do it every day. Like there's a process to this. It's like if you went to the dentist and they just told you, yeah, you just buy this toothpaste and you just brush your teeth once and you're good. Like you could probably sell a lot of fucking toothpaste like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But would it actually have any effect?
No.
Not going to happen. So a lot of times when people talk to me, I don't tell them what they want to hear. Sometimes that in itself can be persuasive, but it's only persuasive to the people who want to hear the truth. You see what I'm saying? But that's people I want to
Who actually
persuade.
want a solution.
People will tell me all kinds of, a lot of times they'll try to tell me how I should talk to other people in order to persuade them. And it's like, you're assuming that you know who I want to persuade.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like you should have this on your website and this
You're
and
not
this. And it's like,
appealing to this group of people. You're like, I don't fucking want
I
that.
don't want people to think that this is just like school or something or whatever it is. Like, I don't want you to think that. That's not important to me. I want you to do this because you actually want to do what's best for yourself. Because as soon as you have it, you're going to have to realize like, oh, I have to now be self-honest. I have to use it every day. I have to do these things.
Yeah.
And that's part of the process. That's okay. Some people will get that much more easily. And some people in the beginning, it's much harder. But what it comes down to is, do you want to be manipulated by your feelings or not? And you know how you'll know is if you manipulate yourself by your feelings. Isn't it?
Yeah. 100%.
Are you willing
it's a
to
big point of
have the
self-honesty.
discipline to do what is hard so that you can have the result? Or do you just want to be lied to and made to be feel good because you just want to continue in your delusion? The problem is, here's the problem. Trump being out of office, if that's what happens, will only accelerate everybody facing this point faster.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem either way.
Might be a good thing.
It's not gonna. What people think is that, oh, finally he's out. Now we can all just get back to loving each other again. It's like, you mean like how you were loving everyone while we were like drone striking people and people were dying of starvation.
I loved that.
And what's going to happen is, who are the people? Think about this. Who are the people who are going to come in and tell us everything's just fine?
The same people who have been telling us everything was on
Terrible.
fire. Yeah.
It will be just fine for a few people, like in the first world. And they'll never know anything else because they're now into a little bubble in their social media that's not going to tell them anything else. Is this really what people want?
So you know how you made that doctor analogy earlier?
Which one?
Where like Trump is like basically like if a doctor came in dressed like a hippie, wearing a Grateful Dead shirt, whatever, right? It's funny. I told this to one of my friends the other day. Trump is like Dr. House, right? It's like best doctor, terrible bedside manner, right? He's not the person you actually want to put in front of anyone, but he's the one who actually gets shit done.
Yeah, when you need results, you go to him. Yeah.
Exactly. You have to go to him, right?
That's funny.
Right. But there's another point within that where it's just, it's almost as if like Asif has made this point before, like the house is on fire, right? And it's like, you are the one waking everyone up and saying, we have to get out. We have to go outside. The house is on fire. And then everyone just turns to you and goes, oh, this asshole is the one, disturbing my rest, disturbing my peace. Fuck you. You're the asshole. It's like, what the fuck? I'm trying to help you guys here. I opened the door so you can see all the shit that's going on. It's like we're basically right now, we're facing a point where you can basically turn over and go back to sleep and pretend like everything's fine.
You know what the real problem is, though?
What's that?
Is what Mitchell said before he left, is like, imagine the door to get out of the house needed like everyone's key.
That is the reality of it.
Yeah.
That's where it's at.
But
That's
the
why
interesting
Avery says it so often. He's like, I'll question him sometimes. I'll be like, this particular individual, why do you care? If they don't give a fuck them, right? Just let them go, But you care so much, Avery. You're the most principled. You and Avery are the most principled people I've ever seen. And Avery, why
Can
do
I
you
say
care
something real
so
quick
much?
about that?
Huh?
I don't care. I don't have any feeling inside of me about caring about it.
Hmm.
I just really want to do what's best.
Yeah,
Do you see?
that's
Like,
what
that's
I'm
not.
talking about. Yeah.
I don't feel about
You're
it.
not like, oh,
you'd
thank you
say-
for saying that. I really
No,
do.
what I'm saying is,
appreciate saying
I'm
the
just
kind
telling you so you can reference for yourself. I
Mm.
don't feel superior about it. I don't feel like a good person about it.
Yeah.
I just feel like the person trying to wake everybody else up because the house is burning down.
Mm.
Do you see the difference? I'm not everyone sleep in their beds and I've got this delicious cake and I'm such an amazing person because I'm going to go around and give everybody cake and haha, look, then you want some cake? I'm like, why don't you want the cake? No, it's like the house is burning down. And I'm like, guys, wake the fuck up. We need to put the fucking fire out and get out of here. Or one or the other. We need to do something. There's no caring. You're not like, I'm waking everybody up because I'm such a caring person. I can't get out of the fucking house.
Hmm.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's set up that way on purpose. We're all here and it's set up that way on purpose because we don't care. You should be able to do this even if you don't care. All you have to do is stick with the principles. Do you see the difference? The principles, it doesn't matter if you care. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Because
And I just wanted
caring
to
is not a
finish what
caring is
Abe-
not a feeling.
Yeah,
It's you doing it. And that's your caring. It's not a feeling. So the reason I'm saying that is don't feel like you're not on track because you don't feel this way. You're like, well, these guys must seem like they're just really so just compassionate people. No, it's just common sense. You see what I'm saying?
yeah. And you
Like,
hear
do you
Avery
care
say
if the
this.
firefighter's running up the house like, I love saving people? Or is he like, I just got to get my fucking job and I got to get people out of here. I'll get fired. Like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
As long as you save me from the fire, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, as long as you do the job, it doesn't matter how you feel about it. And people use feeling to manipulate.
Yeah.
Like, well, I care about my children. So that's why it's okay that I put them in school and brainwash them and let them watch TV and all this shit.
Right.
Because I care. It's like, fuck the caring part. You know, that's why like KT says care, but not that much.
Yeah.
You have to care from the perspective of like, I'm serious about what I'm doing. I care. Like, I'm not going to give up.
Mhm.
But it's not like you're turning it into some complex within yourself.
Mhm.
Do you see what I'm saying? I just want to give that context.
To bolster that point, because I wouldn't have been aware of the point to specify the way Avery says it. He's not like, I really do feel it's important to wake everybody up. When I asked him that, I'm like, why do you care so much? I say that, right? And so I'm glad you brought that up. But really what I mean is like, why do you spend so much time supporting each individual? Even if like, in my eyes, they might not have what it takes or whatever the case may be. He's like, well, acknowledging it's like, we have the tool to change. Like, that's not a problem. But some people will take more time, right? But he says, it's all of us or none of us. He's like, which one do you want? I'm like, okay, yeah, you got me there.
But think about it. Do you
when
see how
he's-
he's saying
but
it's
when
a
he
matter of
says that-
common sense? Yeah, sorry,
Exactly. He when he says that, he's not being like, so I feel it's my duty to make sure that each and every one of us can go up to no, he's like, dude, it's all of us or none of us. Like it's one or
It's
the
like
other.
how it works.
Exactly. It's like you
Do
need
you want to start all
everybody's
over and
consent.
have to do all this over again?
And it's exactly what you said about how to the subversion of a nation, right? It's like you can't do it against people's will.
Yeah.
It's all of us or none of us, right? And so that's why nothing will actually be resolved, even from a democratic perspective, like the people who voted for Biden, so long as there's so much conflict. And that's just going to excel. And I love that because I was really considering that point. It's like, if Biden gets elected, great. Because as long as you still have your eyeballs and a little bit of common sense, okay, theoretically speaking, you'll see the decline. Right. And in 4 years from now, or from now until then, you'll just have more and more people being like, just questioning things. And being
Let me
like,
ask you guys a question. Don't you think there's going to be fires like 3 years from now
fires?
in California?
Yeah.
What
do
are
you
they
mean?
going to say then?
What do you mean?
Like wildfires.
Oh, yeah.
They're gonna say, because if we would have been a part of the Paris climate,
Yeah. You're
But
not
let me
gonna
ask you a
hear about it.
question.
You're not gonna
How
hear
do
about it.
you even know about those fires?
Yeah, you're not gonna hear about it. Everything's gonna be fucking like
And
glory
isn't
light.
it possible that the fires are very severe where they're at, but it's always been like that?
yeah,
And it's just being amplified and you see it and it's like you're just being persuaded.
Right.
So what I see is there are people slowly but surely who are, let's think of it like this. Let's say you come into this world, you have some life experiences, you suffer a lot, you see the problems, you go to the afterlife, and you get to see the consequences of your life. And if there's a point within you which says, you know what, there's a point within you left where you could come back here and stand up and make a difference, stand up within yourself, within whatever the point is you're in this world, you're going to come back. So that way you can get that opportunity. And if you don't, you just don't exist anymore. All right. So people are going to come back and they're going to see more than they saw before. So we don't need to go into a despair point of like, oh, no one's ever going to wake up or anything like that. The thing is, they may be aware, but that doesn't mean they're going to know what to do.
Right.
Our responsibility and those who are listening is to share with other people. This is the tools. This is the process. But I'm saying you don't need to worry about, are people going to be aware or not? Are they going to be totally controlled? There's going to be people who don't question anything. They're going to die. But there's going to be other children born, and those children are going to be a little bit more aware. They're going to be open, and you can talk to them. Not maybe as children, but when they're adults, whatever it is. You see what I'm saying? And if you develop their vocabulary effectively as children, they'll be able to see right through it, everything that's going on, because you don't need any side to see what's going on. I was against war before I was supporting Trump.
Why?
You know what I mean? Like,
Why
but at
would
the same
you be
time,
against war, dude.
right. But it's like, think about this. Does that mean you have to have in the context of today, no military?
no.
Because if you didn't have a
ridiculous.
military, what would happen in this country?
We'd be taken over.
Right. So people might look at it, well, but Trump boosted up the military and everything. It's like, yeah, but did he use it?
Yeah.
Don't you see? It makes sense in the context of where we're at. So what's Biden going to do? Let's get rid of all the military and everything, right? It's like, or defund certain things or whatever, and then they're just going to drone strike people in other countries. Like they're not. It's not like anything's going to fundamentally change. Just, but it's going to have the appearance of that.
Yeah.
It's going to make you feel good. Where'd Asif go? Oh well, he's run off somewhere. What are your closing thoughts, Jake? Because we'll probably wrap it up now.
Closing thoughts. What is our responsibility within all this, regardless of who is president or not, and regardless of what's going on outside you? That's really the point, right? Is regardless of what the media tells you or doesn't tell you, we have a responsibility as individuals to do what's best for all, because it's not just what's best for other people, but it includes us as well. And well, what does that actually mean? What does that practically look like? That means you have to become the living word or the example of everything that for whatever reason you're holding yourself back within. And so like if there's a point within you where you feel like you can't do something, you have to become that. Like you have to build yourself so that you don't hold on to that as an excuse for why you can't do what's best. I remember.
But then the principle within that would be,
Yeah.
you have to create a system that makes sure everybody has what they need from birth. So always use that as the measurement, because meaning don't just go into, well, I never thought I could skateboard. It's like,
That's
I mean, if you want to skateboard, fine, no problem. But that's not in itself going to make a difference, is it?
Yeah. I'm looking at this with the starting point of doing what's best for all. I'm looking, and by that, I mean, that doesn't mean you can just go off into the woods and live by yourself and you're happy and, this is better for society because I'm happy. No, that's not actually taking the time to really observe what's going on here and what we're allowing and what can be changed, and taking an active role in saying, hey, why are we just leaving this thing like it is? Why are we just leaving this house on fire? Why are we just leaving this gate open so that, you know, all of our flock can just leave? Why are we not actually taking the responsibility that is required to actually make this work in the best possible way? And that's the responsibility that each and every one of us has. And it's up to each individual whether they're going to take that responsibility. But if someone else isn't doing it, that's not an excuse for why you or I can't do it.
Well said.
And now our group is big enough so that there's somebody that looks just like you who's doing it already. So that way you can have the confidence to do it yourself.
I
There you
actually am a woman, if you didn't know that.
So perfect. So now we have that covered. So
Nice.
that.
Yeah. So speaking of that group, where can they find that?
self-perfected.com. You'll see the principles. You'll see the free DIP Lite, the Destiny I Process Lite, which is literally the handbook to how your mind works.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, you just click the description. There's going to be tons of links in there for this one. I think you should probably see the experience and living principles, or live principles.
Experienced living and principled living.
There it is. And then the discussions
It is. I
that,
checked it. Yeah.
that Cam spoke about, or that you were talking about earlier, those Facebook Lives that Cam did a long
Soviet-
time
oh,
ago.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then also, yeah, that Soviet KGB guy
You gotta
talking
watch
about
that.
subversion. Gotta watch
That's
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's wrap it up there. Let's leave it there.
And
See you next time.
And real quick, for those of you who didn't get the wicked access to the merchandise, get on one of the Friday Global Hangouts, and in there we give the link to the store and the store password, because right now things are really, really, let's just say the price is going to go up. So I'd recommend getting in there.
Oh,
And
shit.
yeah, Cameron, get on it.
I need to get
in-
some new shirts.
exactly. Yeah. Get in there, and because there's some really wicked merch there. This is some really cool stuff. Manel got an apron. Showing her
Oh,
apron
really?
God damn.
with the logo on it. Is awesome. It was awesome. So
Yeah,
go
we're
check
gonna
out
get one.
self-perfected.com,
That's cool.
and nice. See you guys later.
See ya.
Peace.